It is 10:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL scouting combine is officially over, and now the Titans move towards top 30 visits with some of the top prospects in the draft. Multiple reports saying the Titans have scheduled some early visits as Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter will come in on Thursday. Cam Ward scheduled for Friday. Shedeur Sanders for next Monday. Travis Hunter will visit in the coming weeks. In NFL news over the weekend, the Washington Commanders acquired wide receiver Deebo Samuel in a trade with the 49ers, sending San Francisco a fifth-round pick for the 29-year-old. College hoops over the weekend, the fifth-ranked Vols knocked off number 5 Alabama in buzzer-beating fashion, 79-76. Jemai Mashack with the deep three in the final seconds.
Ziegler gets the ball to Mashack. Mashack's going to take it. 2 seconds. Mashack, 1 second. Launches the three-point shot. Good! At the buzzer! Mashack wins it for Tennessee. With 3.8 seconds to go, Tennessee brings it up the floor. And Jemai Mashack hits the biggest three-point shot in his career.
Bob Kessling and Burt Bertelkamp on the Vol Network call, heard right here on The Zone. Tennessee improves to 24-5, 11-5 in SEC play. Vanderbilt picked up a big win in SEC play Saturday, 97-93 over number 14 Mizzou at Memorial Gym. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's going on, Nashville? Big weekend in sports. Even bigger news. Buck is out. Burt is in. Welcome to the Burt Rising Show with Lucas Panzica. Hattie B's may be the title sponsor, but the B stands for Burt, baby. Lucas, huge weekend in sports. We got combine reaction. We got the Vols buzzer beater. But where I want to start today, the greatest swerve in sports history. WWE's Elimination Chamber this weekend. John Cena made children cry as he won his record 4th Elimination Chamber to punch his ticket to WrestleMania, but that's not the big news. John Cena turning heel on Cody Rhodes, aligning himself with The Rock. How does that make you feel, Lucas, your childhood hero, turning his back on the fans?
John Cena, my childhood hero?
Yeah, I assume John Cena was a big childhood hero of yours.
So he turned his back on the fans how?
He aligned himself with The Rock, turned his back on Cody Rhodes, busted his head open with his father's golden Rolex, assuming that he would have been his friend, assuming that they would have aligned themselves. Hey, even though we're going to wrestle at WrestleMania, we can still be on the same team. No, says I. We also got the first F-bomb in WWE history as Cody Rhodes told The Rock that he can go bleep himself. We can get to that in a minute, but I just want to let you know how happy I am that we are rid. Ding dong, the witch is dead. No more Buck. You heard him on Fox Sports this weekend. He's no longer working here. We don't have to worry about his down, depressing attitude anymore. Now the show's more open for our hijinks. And what's going on?
What is he doing here? See, this is what people didn't expect. It was all about a lawn con for me to take over, but it was actually supposed to be Burt to take over. I'm not sure what you're doing here. I don't know if it's just force of habit. Muscle memory, you rolled out of bed and got into your car and walked into the studio because that's just what you do every Monday morning, but you don't work here anymore. I'm not sure why. Oh, and he's taking his sweet time, unpacking his stuff.
Come on, you were supposed to turn your card in. What are you doing? This is my show now. This is my opportunity to shine. It's mine. What are you doing here?
Get the hell out of my way.
You sound horrible.
God, you look even worse. What are you doing?
What happened to you? Okay.
What do you mean? I've been drunk for a week in Indianapolis. What do you think happened?
Why are you here?
Why am I here? Because this is my radio show.
No, we were under the impression that you did not work here anymore.
It's the 4-year anniversary of my radio show. I brought donuts, not for either of you, but for me.
You are not going to eat any of those donuts. You need to communicate better. When you said see you tomorrow, I took that as see you after the show that you and Burt are now hosting tomorrow. You need to be more thorough in your communication to your alleged coworkers.
Now listen. We all
you
heard.
You two aren't coworkers.
We
you just
all
exist.
He can't even hear me. Doesn't even have his headphones on.
I can hear you.
I
You're loud enough.
Doesn't
Don't
even
worry.
have his headphones on. You made your Fox Sports Radio debut, and I assumed that when I got a promotion, it
Are
was
these
because
balloons for me?
no, they are
No,
for the
definitely
morning
not.
show. The new sponsor on the morning show,
I'm going to
Scooter's
pretend that
Coffee.
they're for me. I don't care about that.
Okay, the balloons are not for you. They were for the death of Buck Rising's radio career, because this is now the Bert and Lucas show. I don't know where the hell you get off thinking that you can come in here and take everything back.
Well, you know what? I know that both of you can be bought, because what I have in front of me is a dozen of East Park Donuts and Coffee's finest confections.
Go on.
You have to say one nice thing about me before you can have any of these delightful donuts. No free ads.
How long do I have to think about it?
I will give you to the count of 5. 1,
Oh, crap.
2, 3, 4.
I appreciate that you've grown a full beard. The mustache is gone. You look much better with the full beard.
Until I go to the barber tomorrow.
No, the mustache. Listen, I'm not willing to make any concessions here with my show. I'm
Why
not
is this
willing
chair so low?
because I'm supposed to be sitting there. It is for me.
Well, that's because it would be weighed down.
Well,
that's the only reason it would be
Listen, we're
riding
not going
that
to
low.
fat shame on this new version of the show. We're not going to.
I have the donuts. I'm going to call you as fat as I want today.
Listen, I will allow you to be on this show going forward if you, in turn, will say something nice about Lucas and I to the count of 5. 1, 2. Oh, your mic's not on. Here you go. 3, 4, 4.5, 4 3/4.
There's a lot to choose from.
All right, sold. He's out of here. I can't deal with this anymore. Just the fact of you being here all weekend, I slaved away, tried to make sure the show was going to be coherent, fun, connected.
God, you are just the worst. This is like a significant other that just nags and whines and complains about all the different things. Just shut up and do your job.
You are my radio wife, so what would I explain? How would I be?
I think he just told you to get back in the kitchen, is what he just told you.
Disrespectful.
Buck Rising.
If you'd like to get rid of
2025.
I bought him an apron for his birthday. I'm just following the theme here.
If you'd like me to leave, you know how to do it.
Shadows.
I'm still the host, dadgummit.
Dadgummit, what are you, Phillip Rivers?
You do sound terrible.
I do. Well, that's to be expected. What did you think was going to happen when I came back from Indy? This is an annual tradition unlike any other.
Everybody else that was in Indy all week sounds perfectly fine. Ramon sounded chipper this morning, and he had to be on air at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
Mike Golic Jr., I bet, will sound like Mike Golic Jr. when he comes on here in about 12 minutes.
Say something nice about me, or you're not getting one of these donuts. I almost just choked on my own phlegm there. Did you hear that?
I had a cinnamon roll earlier.
Oh, please.
So I am tentatively.
I saw you eyeing
Not
one of these
interested.
blueberry fritters that I brought in today. Don't even think about it.
Something nice about you is difficult.
5,
You're not as fat as you used to be.
4. Well, I suppose that's true.
I preferred the fat buck.
Good morning. How's morale? We're happy to have you. For the next 3 hours, that's right, Mike Golic Jr. is going to be on the show today. It was baby's first combine. I'm surprised Gojo's never been to the combine before.
That is surprising.
Was doing a lot of good work up there for Bleacher Report. We will get the ins and outs of Indianapolis from him here in just about 15 minutes from now. Your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045 is the number. The F&M Bank chat also open for business as well.
And disappointed to see you.
That's
we
fine.
should add.
I'm disappointed to see them as well. The feeling is very mutual. 615-737-1045. Indy was excellent. I appreciate the boys holding it down. I appreciate that upon my return, so as to not bother me, Jackson is out of my sight lines. And so we will continue on with business as usual. Also, it was an excellent weekend for Tennessee basketball. That Jemai Mashack 3, of all people to hit the 3, to beat Alabama, to hear Bert Bertelkamp just screaming money at the top of his voice, probably sounds like me today. Probably everybody at Thompson Bowling Arena sounds like me today after a raucous ending to that game. What an awesome way to beat Alabama. What an awesome way to win at home. What an awesome way to get the crowd going. Did you see Josh Heupel doing the cigar smoking, hand signals? Josh Dobbs in attendance. We should have Dobbs on. He's been at a lot of these basketball road games in particular.
It's been a good year for Tennessee athletics against the University of Alabama. Football, women's hoops, and now men's hoops. Clean sweep.
So, morale is high, and the Titans are back from the combine. We've got a lot of different news and notes to peel through. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. People getting gaslit already by trade offers that aren't real on Twitter, which is also a tradition unlike any other, and we've got a lot of time to dissect it. Of all the different combine coverage that was produced over the weekend, I assume that you two, well, I don't know, Bert, you take in a lot of this stuff throughout the course of the NFL pre-draft process. Was there any one thing that stood out about the testing before we move into the dialogue, the trade talks, the people that the Titans are hosting with their 30 visits? Don't call them top 30. The scouts get offended by that.
Oh, why is that?
I don't know. They just call them 30 visits.
Okay.
Don't ask a question if you don't want the answer.
One big takeaway. Stop predicting what you're going to do in 40 times. NFL draft prospects. From here until the rest of eternity, it never works out. Isaiah Bond predicted he was going to break the 40 record set by his former teammate, Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I was over there
at
for
the combine. Didn't really happen. Even I remember Jalen Hyatt a couple of years ago up at the podium just doing you'll see. Just wait. Just wait till you see what I've got at the 40. And it was fine, right? It was kind of a middling 40 time for that particular class of wide receivers. That was my big takeaway from the combine. Let's stop predicting what we're going to do in the drills and talk after we do it.
So I'm demanding that Bert go back to the kitchen as Lucas is telling athletes to shut up and dribble.
Very progressive show in
2025. You know, it's like everything else. Everything else is being rolled back that way. Why couldn't we? Let's just take it on back to the Stone Age at this point. No, I'm with you. There's a lot of bluster. There's a lot of talk, and I appreciate the confidence. You got to carry yourself a certain type of way. And, you know, maybe it's because I finished, I think I told you guys that I was watching Court of Gold, the Netflix documentary special on the 2024 USA basketball team and kind of documenting their journey. Honestly, it's gotten me back into the NBA because I find them thoroughly likable, and that's not the case for a lot of NBA stars, especially if you just pay attention to basketball from afar. But there's a part in there where they're talking about the Serbian team going up against Team USA. Team USA, obviously a juggernaut, right? It's LeBron James, it's Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, on and on and on it goes. It's basically the Avengers as a basketball team. But Team Serbia has the best basketball player in the country, in the world, in Nikola Jokic.
Euros Plavsic.
No. You know what he did? I was looking at that guy trying to figure out where I knew him from. I did not realize that was Euros. But it's Bogdan Bogdanovic of Team Serbia who's talking about, you know, sometimes you need to be delusional as a professional athlete. You have to believe to the point where it makes absolutely no sense to believe to get yourself into a place where you can overcome these overwhelming circumstances that you might be faced with. And I appreciate that level of delusion from athletes because I believe a lot of them have to manifest some of the greatness that they achieve. But when it comes to combine testing, you know, it's okay to just kind of let the performance do the talking for you. I appreciate what Isaiah Bond was trying to do. There was some chuckles around the podium when he said that he wanted to run a 4-1 flat. And, of course, that did not happen. But we've got a lot of different things from the combine to get into, and we look forward to doing that over the course of today, I suppose.
That's why you carry yourself like someone with any level of importance.
Oh, delusion?
Delusion.
Of course.
Lots making sense.
Mike Golic Jr. will join us while Lucas and Bert shovel donuts into their face. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has helped so many guys over the course of the last decade, and they can help you too, because lots of men assume that if the pills stop working related to ED, they may have no other options than something like irreversible surgery to treat it. The sad reality is that if you go to a doctor to get ED treatment, those may be the only protocols they have available. Please, guys, do not go through irreversible surgery or any other extreme to treat ED before you have talked to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do, and it makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy and don't feel like you're out of options. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. All right, let's see if I'm the only unprofessional person that attended the Combine this weekend, because I sound like a week in Indianapolis. I sound like a week of steaks, cigar smoke, and 4 a.m. nights at Prime 47. Mike Golic Jr. Doing a lot of good work up there for Bleacher Report. Joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. If I'm not mistaken, it was Gojo's first Combine. I don't know how that's the case, but he did an excellent job with great content and conversations up there. Do you sound as bad as I do today?
No shot.
Good morning, friend.
No, I somehow managed to dodge the worst of it, which is amazing and continues an historic run that I'm on, because Super Bowl week this year in New Orleans, I was bracing for my usual Friday voice by the end of the week, and somehow, some way, I think it was because I managed to actually eat meals during the day and drink water for maybe the first time in recorded Super Bowl history. So I carried that formula over to the Combine, and we somehow made it work. So grace of God, I don't deserve any credit for this. This is just a lucky run that I'm on. I'm going to kind of ride the high while I can.
Mike, he's had over 2 days to recover. He got back on Friday, too, and he still sounds like somebody took a cheese grater to his throat.
Let me tell you what, I am sympathetic. As Buck mentioned, this is my first Combine this last weekend, and I get it. Good Lord, do I get it.
That's
Never
racist.
seen anything like this. I had a buddy of mine who's in coaching text me last year and say, this seems like college for a lot of people. And walking into Prime 47 at midnight and feeling the wave of heat hit me and that sticky feeling beneath my feet, I felt like I was back at the linebacker in South Bend. It was amazing.
It's like our spring break. It's the NFL spring break at this point in time, or it was. And I think a lot of people, including myself, are too quick to take advantage of that. Also, a lot of those bars happen to be my college bars, Mike, because I went to Indiana, Bloomington, and the original Kilroy's right down the road, so why not carry that over? It's just always a bad week for me that way. But it's a good week for a lot of players. It's a good week for coaches and organizations trying to get their stuff together ahead of the NFL draft. And, of course, free agency will come first in just, 9 days from now. The new league year will be upon us. Given that it was your first Combine experience, what, I guess, lived up to expectations that you might have had, and what was different going in that you expected?
Yeah, I think for all of the focus on the field, which certainly is the thing that matters, second to the interviews behind the scenes that none of us get to see, right? You're hearing bits and pieces from what players say about who they met with officially, what team personnel that you might talk to said about guys that they had a chance to catch up with. But obviously, that physical part on field has always been the sell. I think for me, the part I enjoyed the most, to your point, getting to go out there with Bleacher Report and do some interviews that were used in a live show they were a part of, is just getting to see how these guys respond and talk ball in a setting where they're inundated with it. They're going up on these podiums and talking. They're talking behind their closed doors in the meetings. They've been coached how to do this in the way I know you are during the pre-draft process, but to still hear how some guys and who it left you coming away impressed with tied to the workouts. Like Jahdae Barron, one of the stories of the weekend, performed incredibly well. That 4.4 matched the tape that a lot of people saw. But hearing him, he reeks of the maturity of a player that had to wait a little bit longer to get to the point where he was going to be considered a day one draft pick. A guy that developed a lot over the last 3 years. Hearing his classmate Kelvin Banks in this draft class out of Texas talk specifically about deficiencies in his game that he knows he's got to work on going to the next level. Those are the kind of things that, as we're trying to figure figure out who's got the aptitude to come in and digest what we're throwing at them, take that criticism and work with it, that I thought really impressed me in terms of a part of the process I had undersold.
Mike Golic Jr. is hanging out here. We recapping the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis on 104.5 The Zone.
Mike, as a former offensive lineman, how naturally do you gravitate towards watching and talking about the O-line at the Combine, especially this tackle class, which is particularly interesting, and Titans obviously have a major need at right tackle?
Yeah, no, I always you go with what you know, right? And I think the familiarity of with what these guys are asked to do, what the specific points of the position are that are going to matter at the next level, all that stuff, you can't help it. And selfishly for me, I like watching guys, and I don't know how you guys are with sports. I like watching guys that are way better than I could have ever conceived of being. Like, some people love an underdog story. The guy that grinded his whole career to get there might be a little bit under. I want to see the freaks of nature that go out there and far exceed anything I was going to put on tape. And this class certainly has one of those guys. Armand Membu had a really big weekend in terms of testing incredibly well in that regard. So it's an interesting class because with so many of the top guys, we've already had I call it the Zoolander slashy conversation, where it's always a tackle in college, but maybe we'll kick him down to guard. Doesn't necessarily speak to it as highly as last year's tackle class, but I do think there are a lot of really good, productive starters in this class, and a lot of those guys, Tyler Booker on the interior, all showed really well for themselves this weekend at the Combine.
Look at you acting like Lucas or I have a shred of athleticism, like all of these players are not leaps and bounds better than us at anything that we would have ever just even thought about trying to accomplish athletically, Mark.
And listen, you guys give off the vibes of a very athletic show, but it is everyone's got those, I think, different ways they come to the game. And I always do appreciate the guys that are incredibly gifted, because it's a fine line with offensive line in the NFL too. And I think this is the interesting part of this tackle class is I was just watching Membu, and there are lots of things to like, but there are also things that are imperfect. And it's how much as an NFL team do you know you're capable of? Like the Eagles and Jeff Stoutland are a perfect example. They get to move different than 90% of the league. The Titans, because of Bill Callahan, get to move differently than 90% of the league, because when you've got a proven developer, you can look a little bit more at traits. You can look a little bit more at a guy with high athletic upside who probably just needs to be coached on a couple of the finer points. Other teams, that's not necessarily the case. And if you want to get caught up on traits and arm length and all this stuff that doesn't match production necessarily, you're going to get yourself in trouble if you don't have an actual coach that can handle it in the building and a program to develop these guys at a time in the NFL's history where there's less on-field time for this unnatural position than ever before.
The NFL, I think, Mike, has done a lot better adapting the drills specific to positions that they're going to put these guys through. And, you know, some still have a greater level of relevancy than others, and not all of them necessarily translate. Obviously, you still have to be technically sound. You still have to have skill at what you're doing beyond being able to, you know, lift heavy weights and run fast and jump high, though those things, of course, do matter. Drills that are most relevant to you as a former offensive lineman, collegiate, and I know you had a couple of cups of coffee in the pros at a couple of training camps and things like that, versus what you kind of put off to the side and be like, yeah, okay, maybe that guy didn't perform at the highest of heights in this particular drill, but that drill is not going to be a defining thing for him as to whether, for example, this is a third-round pick or a fifth-round pick.
Yeah, I think for me, they have done a good job of morphing, particularly the offensive lines on field drills to stuff. I really enjoyed the one. It was kind of like the mimic a screen, get them out in the open field and see how well they move once they're out there, what they look like change of direction wise on the roof, all that stuff that mimics an actual play. And so I think for that, I want to see the change of direction stuff that they do with some of the bag drills there. Obviously, the wave drill is one it's fun to look at. It's fun to watch. But to me, the mirror drill where you're asked to pivot on a dime when you're trying to pass off, almost like mimicking passing off a stunt in the bags where they'll have you hit one slide, come back inside. All those things, to me, that's the kind of stuff that I want to see that, hey, maybe depending on what spot you played on the line or what level you played at or the kind of competition, maybe you didn't see as much of that, or maybe you just want to see it relative to their peers on the field of how a guy moves laterally, where he puts his weight in his stance when he's going to the outside here, how easily he's able to change direction. To me, those are all things that I want to know, especially for this tackle class, in terms of what I can expect against high-level guys in the perimeter at the next level. So I think overall, like, listen, listen, we've already all heard, the 40, stuff like that with offensive linemen. You're going to take it with a grain of salt. You're going to look at the 10, but I do think a lot of the on-field bag drills have gotten to the point where it's, all right, I'm actually going to watch you do this. Harry Hiestand, who I played with at Notre Dame, was always huge on, I don't need the sleds and the boards and all this stuff. That's not out there on the field with you when you're playing actual football. I want everything we do in practice to replicate an exact movement in the game, and I think we're getting closer to that with the drills every year.
Mike, unsurprisingly, Matt Stafford will remain in L.A. That was a big takeaway, big news out of the week in Indianapolis. So as we look to that first domino that's going to fall, where does Aaron Rodgers even rank for you in the importance level, just in terms of the quarterbacks that are going to make some sort of movement this offseason? It's strange because we've obviously talked about him ad nauseum, but it also feels like there's a chance here that he may not end up mattering that much overall in the quarterback market.
Yeah, I think especially given what we know, unless Aaron Rodgers is all of a sudden going to change the way he moves away from the field and how that would affect your building, especially for a guy that's like, at best, bridge quarterback or holdover because you don't have any other option here. He's probably, he's well behind Sam Darnold, which is a hilarious thing to just say in general as a statement around football. But well behind Sam Darnold in this conversation, probably behind Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Now, the Cousins one is a little different because based on the way Atlanta's posturing, it doesn't look like they're going to cut him. They've had that money earmarked in the quarterback room for the next 3 years. And so keeping him on the backup as a backup, unless someone's going to pry him out with draft capital, to me is probably something I would brace for in this market. But yeah, Aaron is probably third, fourth down the list in terms of guys that I want in my building. It would take a specific type of building and team culture, a specific type of locker room, and likely a conversation with Aaron about, hey, what's this going to be like? Am I going to have to think about you going on McAfee every Tuesday and saying something? I know the Jets denied that was a part of their conversation, but I don't think that's an absurd thing to bring up when you're talking about this position and where Aaron Rodgers is at this point in his career skill set wise.
I couldn't ever imagine myself covering the Tennessee Titans in the year 2025 and turning my nose up at Aaron Rodgers, Mike, but that's where I am. Like, I just think I don't know him personally, but everything around him, the energy is just so bad. It's so bad. And this is an organization that has a clear and obvious need at quarterback. Basically, anybody could come in here and upgrade the level of quarterback that they received, and yet I am just so uninterested in seeing him come in here and nor do I think that they're legitimately considering it. I don't think Brian Callahan, a coach coming off his first year in a 3-14 campaign and the worst team in football, would be comfortable tying himself to the anchor that is 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers at this point in time. But I can't wrap my head around what you're saying, even though that's the reality.
It is. I wonder when that flips, because Aaron Rodgers towards the end of the season, to speak to the other side of this, was singing a markedly different tune when all of a sudden, faced with his football mortality in general, faced with his mortality with the Jets, of saying, I'm willing to mentor and be a part of helping a younger guy here. I'm willing. It was the first time we had seen something in the vein of Aaron Rodgers acquiescing to the needs of the others on the team, the others in management, and a different plan in the team beyond just, here's the keys to the organization, go do what you need to do. We've waved bye-bye to that. And so if Aaron Rodgers is now going to carry that mentality forward and is willing to maybe take more of a back seat or to acquiesce to the other people in the building, at some point, it's going to tilt the other way this offseason as desperation sets in, because we have talked about the game of musical chairs around quarterbacks this offseason. A, does not have a lot of compelling answers, but B, just has more chairs than it does people at the dance at this point. And so at some point, someone's going to take a chance on Aaron Rodgers. It's just a matter of, will this process and the way that overall it's humbling a guy that's one of the best players we've ever seen at the position, will it change the way that he approaches whatever the next opportunity is? Because I still think he's going to get one.
To your point about the musical chairs, that's what makes this such a fascinating offseason to cover. This is the most interesting Titans offseason I've ever been a part of, and if for no other reason, Mike, but then there's no clear and obvious path forward for them in 2025 at the very least. So given that they currently are in possession of the number 1 overall pick, and you don't even have to make it about the player that you draft if you don't want it to go that route, but philosophically, how do you view them, where they are in their timeline right now, relative to what this draft offers, understanding that free agency will come in first and help us fill in a lot of these gaps, because I'm just so split. And basically everybody that I talked to this week in Indianapolis was also split. I understand that fans are desperate for a quarterback, especially with the number 1 overall pick. We've been, I wouldn't say fighting that battle for the last couple of months, but just having that conversation at the very least, being like, hey guys, if there was a clear and consensus number 1 overall pick at quarterback, doesn't necessarily mean that they would be a future Hall of Famer, but like we would know that prior to the combine, so that the NFL is as split as the conversation seems to be. I wonder how you kind of view everything within the prism of the Titans.
I think the way that this offseason is set up and where the Titans sit right now requires honesty and patience, because to your point, coming off an awful opening stanza for Brian Callahan and this group, it's not going to get as better in a hurry as you'd like it to avoid hot seat conversation in most circumstances. But if we look at this in totality, I think taking a beat and saying, all right, we have a chance to meaningfully improve and strengthen other areas of this roster. I think that if you get a team like Cleveland or like New York or even like Las Vegas that's somehow truly desperate in a draft class where we all kind of say, hey, it'd probably be ill-advised to spend a ton of resources to go up for one of these quarterbacks. I don't view either of them as a consensus number 1. I don't view either of them as one worthy of those kind of assets, even though they're both going to be top 10 draft picks. If I was Tennessee, I would take Abdul Carter. As long as that stress event or whatever they call it, that's not a stress fracture and that sounds like, according to his representation, reaction, that's the word, won't prevent him from working out at his pro day and won't be a factor. If all of that ends up true and you can check those boxes medically, I'd make him the number 1 overall pick in the draft. As someone that watched him beat the hell out of my favorite team with one arm in that game against Notre Dame in the playoffs, I am an Abdul Carter believer. Was the moment I saw that guy his freshman year when I had a chance to cover Penn State and Happy Valley. And so I would do that, but it also would have to come with the understanding that you're right. Quarterback is going to be an imperfect answer no matter what this offseason. And so you've got to kind of understand as an organization, we're going to take our lumps. And that's easy to say at the beginning of the season, cough, cough, Las Vegas last year, and a lot harder once you get through the season and deal with all the tails that come off of losing at that level, potentially for the second year in a row.
Well, it's interesting to look at 2 of the potential trade partners that you mentioned there, the Giants and the Raiders, both deemed to be in the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes. He remains in L.A. The Giants, you've got an owner who publicly is saying, yeah, my patience is running pretty thin on the GM and head coach that he retained. And with the Raiders, you've got a head coach that'll be 74 come week 1. Both of those rosters need a lot of work, Mike. Where do you think there is more of an urgency to this phrase, irks a lot of people in Nashville, but for a competitive rebuild in 2025 between New York and Vegas?
Yeah, I think Vegas would be the one if you're looking for that's capable of it. Like the Giants, I think you're caught between worlds in a way that's always dangerous. Like this was the same concern you had last year, and that was in the best of circumstances where it's, Caleb Williams is the guy that we look at as the consensus number 1. And you do have all these fun receivers, and in the background, we're all going, well, in hindsight, I didn't put enough emphasis on the offensive line. That ended up being one of the things that ultimately damned them. But the thing I did constantly point to is, you were ready to fire Matt Eberflus at the end of last year, it felt like, and now you're going to bring him back and hope that, hey, shuffling the bag at quarterback is going to be enough to make this happen, and Shane Waldron's going to be your answer, and none of the coaching part of it felt tenable, and that's the danger here in New York is you might potentially bring in a rookie into an environment that seems deeply unhealthy given the tension that's going to exist inherently there. Yeah, you got Malik Neighbors, and that certainly gives you the way to go, but Las Vegas has Brock Bowers on offense. You've both got compelling young weapons that are going to give whoever's at quarterback a better chance than they would have had a year ago this time, at least on paper, it felt like. But I would just say Las Vegas because you're starting fresh. Pete Carroll has done this before. He's done it at a high level before. He's done it in college and the NFL. And so he at least is walking in going, all right, I know where things need to go. For Brian Daboll, with the exception of one season as a head coach, we haven't really seen that. And so now having to go on that adventure again, either with Sam Darnold or with one of the rookie quarterbacks, feels a lot more perilous to me.
He is Mike Golic Jr. He is marked safe from his first NFL Combine. You can check him out on DraftKings. He was doing great work in Indianapolis for Bleacher Report. throughout the course of the week. Mike, thank you for coming on, as always, and making us smarter, and also making me look infinitely less professional because I sound like I can't handle my liquor after a week in Indy, and you're doing all of this pristinely.
Look, you know what? If I can say this, Buck, I think to me, you sound wonderful. I always have thought you had one of those golden voices that just gets better when you add a little bit of smoke and booze on top of it. So I think you're in a great spot here. Don't let him get to you. You're doing great, buddy.
I wish I had that level of confidence. That's Mike Golic Jr. there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Always good to see Gojo, certainly in Indy, and happy to have him as a part of the show. So there's a lot to react to there, because I think his Bears comparison, like bringing back Matt Eberflus, and the detriment that we all understood that to be, and ultimately ended up playing itself out. And I don't think that's a similar situation to Brian Callahan here necessarily, but it does give you some food for thought. And also
it's certainly more similar to the Giants situation.
I would agree. We will take a quick break from football because there was a tremendous basketball result over the weekend. It's always tremendous when the state of Alabama can hold a fat old L, and Jemai Mashack made sure that they did exactly that. We'll talk about the Vols beating Bama at home coming up next. Many people are saying that Saturday night was the biggest game in Thompson Bowling Arena history. Many people are saying that an NCAA tournament number one overall seed, or maybe not number one overall, but number one seed may go to the winner. And all of it just spectacular because nothing warms the soul like Alabama taking a loss. That's what happened when Tennessee beat Bama 79-76, a Final Three as time expired from who? Not Zakai Ziegler. Not Chaz Lanier.
Not Jordan Gainey.
Who could possibly, on the Tennessee Volunteers team, Igor Milicic, perhaps?
Yeah, he'd be more likely.
Correct. So I was here doing Fox Sports Radio. They asked me to fill in with Jason Fitz, and we were having a good time, but it just so happened to be in the middle of that Vols game. That's not a fine, damn it.
It was the Fox Sports. I was hosting this weekend on
I was here.
The illustrious Fox Sports.
I'm setting the scene.
If you missed
Don't
my
make
debut,
my voice crack. I'm already pissed.
The fine could also be a late fine for your unnecessary clarification. We should have a segment of unnecessary but clarifications.
What unnecessary clarification?
With Mike Golic Jr. when you said, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know him personally, but like when we know, but
you
we
literally did this last week when you had to explain that, there's so many more people smarter than me about X's and O's, and we had to look at you and say, really? Yes, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just me stating a fact.
Are you going to pay a fine when you make unnecessary clarifications, or is this just me? Because I'm hemorrhaging money at this point.
yeah, you are in severe debt.
Point being, we were live on national radio when he hit the shot, and I just steamrolled Jason Fitz in the middle of that because I'm screaming. He's on a slight delay, so he doesn't see. He's trailing so far as Bama getting a 5-second violation for the inbounds play. And so by the time I see Jemai Mashack, of all people, hit the shot, I don't see who hits the shot. Well, I mean, I see a player pull up and hit the shot, and I'm screaming because in my head, of course it's not Jemai Mashack. Why on earth would it be that player who hit that shot in that particular game situation? And then as Fitzy's getting caught back up, I look over at the monitor that I'm watching this thing on, and they're interviewing Jemai Mashack. And I'm like, surely not. Surely that is not who took down Bama. I know it wasn't necessarily an upset because Tennessee ranked higher than Bama in the NCAA poll, or at least prior to today.
Yeah, they were favored, but
see how it gets out.
The stakes incredibly high, right? Like you
Crazy.
said. I mean, Joe Lunardi saying only one of these two teams can come away with the one seed. Tennessee is on the one line as of his latest bracketology. There is a great irony to this because, before we go into that, let's hear from Rick Barnes, who said he was trying to call a timeout during that final play. And we'll get to Barnes in a sec while Robert's taking phone calls. But Rick Barnes was frantically trying to call a timeout while Tennessee is moving down the court. And there's a great irony in this because Rick Barnes has been basically begging Jemai Mashack to shoot the ball more. It's a bit of a frustration with him. He passes up a lot of open shots. And it was a storyline with him that nobody took more threes in the offseason than Jemai Mashack. So there is a bit of an irony there that Jemai Mashack took this shot while Rick Barnes was not begging him to take it, but doing the opposite.
Again, I looked at him and said, you got to go, you got to go. And I told him, they know I'm going to call the timeout. I made one good coaching move today. I didn't tell the referee I was going to call a timeout. I normally tell them. And they would have probably given it to me, But I'm screaming it, and I did not see the shot. But I'm happy for Jemai. He's been just an incredible everything. I mean, he exemplifies everything that you want in a player, a person. Great family, and the way that his free throw, getting fouled, going to get the ball. To be frank, the coaches were asking, do I want to go big? I said, I want Shaq on the court. I want him out there. And because he's been through a lot this time of year, he knows what it's about.
So it's not just the shot. It's what Rick Barnes just said. Tennessee down 4 with 30 seconds left. Chaz Lanier gets an and one, misses the free throw, and Jemai muscles his way to the ball, gets fouled in the process, and goes to the line with Tennessee down 2 and just under 30 seconds to go. And he drills both. Bama gets the ball. Jemai Mashack at the lower end of the shot clock forces a jump ball. And then the 5-second violation comes, and then Tennessee gets the ball to half court, and he drills a three from 30.
35.
Yeah, I mean, just barely past half court.
And it was all so cool because Dick Vitale was on the call.
Yeah.
And Dickie V, I know that people over the course of Dickie V's career, obviously now that he's gone through multiple battles with cancer, he's being celebrated. But, Dickie V can be a bit of a cartoon character, but he's such a good person to have in moments like that, and to hear him be a part of the broadcast and, coming off the heels of, I know that the Tennessee basketball players and the University of Tennessee program donated to the Dickie V, to the Cancer Research Fund and Foundation that he's continued to prop up throughout the course of his battle. So to have Dickie V be a part of that, and Jemai Mashack saying, I don't do that, that's not my game, afterwards on the ESPN broadcast, made me laugh. And just think about this, okay? How many games do we have left in the regular season? 3?
2.
So with 2 games left, you don't usually get a lot of opportunity to add a legit win to your resume this close to the tournament and the seeding being determined. So this was a massive accomplishment beyond, beating Alabama, and that's always fun. And, Josh Heupel with the cigar smoking hand motions and stuff like that, getting the crowd hype, waving the hands, everything involved, like just such a pivotal moment to add a headlining achievement to their resume against a quality opponent that by point spread would have been an upset, and if not necessarily by seeding. And I suppose we should expect the new AP poll to come out within the next hour or 2 hours.
Next couple hours, yep.
While we're on the air, so we'll see how much that helped Tennessee and hurt Alabama. But it's a huge accomplishment. I mean, it's the kind of win in a season that's, had some trial and error to it for the University of Tennessee. Gives you legit confidence that this is a team that can steel itself in single elimination play come tournament time. Obviously, we'll get through conference tournaments first. But when we finally get to the bulk of March, that they're capable of doing this, that they've got enough quality pieces and parts to do this, that they've got the confidence, the coaching to step up when it's required. And I think, they made Vols fans feel a lot better about the proposition of that, because there has been some doubt, and fairly so.
Yeah, and they did this on a day where Tennessee was not at its best. I mean, they had untimely turnovers, 12 turnovers in this game. They also forced 12 by Alabama, but Tennessee was dominated on the boards, especially the offensive glass. I mean, the amount of second chance opportunities that Alabama had in this game, and they kill you with those second chance three-pointers. Alabama, 13 offensive rebounds to Tennessee, 7. Almost doubled up Tennessee on the offensive glass. They out-rebounded Tennessee overall, 43-32. That is a substantial advantage that Alabama established in that game. Igor Milicic Jr. got in late foul trouble. Zakai Ziegler was in early foul trouble. Tennessee did a lot of things to lose this game. And then in that last 2-minute stretch, really the last 30-second stretch, made the critical plays to win the game. Jemai Mashack made those plays. Also, 2 buzzer beaters in this game. How important is that and 1 at the end of the first half by Jordan Gainey in a game that you won by 3 at the buzzer? So, very gutsy win for Tennessee. When I think of the biggest shots in that building in Thompson Bowling Arena, I think of Skylar McBee against Kansas in, 2008, I think. I think of Chris Lofton before that against Texas, a team that was coached by Rick Barnes, the deep 3 he drilled right over Kevin Durant. And I'm going to think of Jemai Mashack. It's right up there in that category. By the way, we'd be remiss not to mention Vanderbilt, I think, locked up an NCAA tournament bid with a 97-93 win over Mizzou, a good Mizzou team, a ranked Mizzou team at home in overtime on Saturday. So Tennessee might have punched its ticket to a 1 seed. I think Vanderbilt definitely punched its ticket to the tournament.
615-737-1045 is the number. We will get back to the basketball. Ron Slay will join us in the second hour, but we are coming off the combine, and there's some prospects who made themselves some money. We'll tell you who they are coming up next.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL Scouting Combine is officially over, and now the Titans move towards top 30 visits with some of the top prospects in this draft, reportedly scheduling some early visits as Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter is set to come in on Thursday, Cam Ward on Friday, Shedeur Sanders will visit next Monday, Travis Hunter will visit in the coming weeks. In NFL news over the weekend, the Washington Commanders acquired wide receiver Deebo Samuel in a trade with the 49ers, sending San Francisco a fifth-round pick for the 29-year-old. The Nashville Predators lost at the New York Rangers last night, 4-0, the final. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So when you do the NFL Combine and the pre-draft process, you got a lot of narratives out there. You got narratives that happen before the Combine. You got narratives that come out of the Combine surrounding individual performance, because you've got players running 40s, doing bench presses, all the different drills that take place in Indianapolis throughout the course of the latter part of the week and into the weekend. And even though nothing changes about the tape, people will change the way that they discuss players, do the winners and losers things coming out of the Combine, which I think can be a little bit foolish. But there's no question that for teams where a fraction of a second in a 40-yard dash might decide or help inform how you group a player in the first group of a position versus the second or third, these things do matter, and there is the opportunity to make more of a name for yourself in Indy than you might have had coming in, to help stand out, to help influence your draft position, even though we have about a month, a little more than a month, between now and the actual draft taking place. We have much less time between now and free agency, 9 days to be exact, which will help inform how we talk about the draft for every team. But with all the testing that took place on the field, which, Lucas, I would argue is the third most important part of the Combine, there are a couple of players that did stand out to me taking in the testing. The only day of testing that I actually watched in person was Thursday, with the edge players and the linebackers and the defensive linemen taking place in the drills. The rest I watched on TV. And I do think that there's a couple of different names that come to mind, but how much Titans fans are actually into this, I don't know if, Zach Lyons does a good job. He's got like a spreadsheet where he keeps a lot of these things where, height weights at the Senior Bowl versus height weights in the Combine, different things, little news and notes that you can update the draft profiles with along the way. I don't know how much the average football fan does that, but there's no question that people are paying attention to a lot of the testing standouts and people who didn't necessarily test well. Because we know the star power at the top of this draft basically didn't participate. It was Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Genty, and none of them took part in any of the drills.
Have you seen Shedeur Sanders speaking out in defense of Will Howard, who did participate in the testing and wasn't great, struggled on some throws.
No, I saw the Will Howard.
Some boos came down from fans at Lucas Oil Stadium with some inaccuracies during those drills. And
Which
Shedeur
is wrong,
Sanders,
by the way.
I know, right? It is a little cringy.
Get out of here.
It does feel cringy. Shedeur Sanders tweeted, "I don't understand y'all hating on Will Howard. He just won a natty. It's hard to throw to wide receivers that you don't know. Everyone runs routes different." That shines a little bit of a light into why these guys choose not to do that. Jackson Dart acquitted himself pretty well. And, people are leaving the Combine speaking very favorably about him. But it's just a chance to see some athletic freaks, if nothing else, right? It's just a chance to marvel at people, like whether it's Nick Immanwori, the safety out of South Carolina, just crazy numbers across the board, or the tackle out of Missouri that turned a lot of heads, Armand Membu, who Mike Golic Jr. just talked about, had a really good week with all the testing and drills that happened for the offensive tackle class. So more than anything for me, that's what it is. Just a chance to marvel at the athleticism, but not put a ton of stock in it.
No, I'm with you because somebody on YouTube says, told y'all, Howard's not him. You're going to do that based off the combine testing?
Right. Like,
What a
he
mouth
just
breather
won a
opinion.
national championship.
It's utterly stupid. And nobody was talking about Will Howard as a first-round draft pick or, I mean, even realistically, a second or third-round draft pick. I think there was some interest in, all right, who's going to end up being quarterback 3 out of this conversation, but it's not because he tested poorly at the combine. I'm pretty confident that he will have a pro day at Ohio State that looks significantly different than his combine throwing session did. Now, here's what I'll say, because I was walking home from one of these late nights in Indianapolis about 11 o'clock. No, I was walking back to the hotel prior to 11 o'clock because the scouts, the meetings with the players, the front offices, the coaches, and the scouts, they have meetings until 11 p.m. Eastern. So I was going back to kind of splash some water on my face, take a breather before I went back out to meet people after they get out of the testing. So it's about 10:30 at night, and I'm walking back to the hotel, and I see this quarterback in the parking lot of one of the hotels in Indianapolis throwing with, and I assume it was a position coach or somebody who was with him, and I couldn't tell who the quarterback was. But it's 10:30 at night. What's this dude doing out here? Throwing around in the parking lot and, going through these drills as if he's participating in a combine test. And I later found out that it was Will Howard in the parking lot out there because he's on a throwing schedule. He's on a very specific throwing schedule. And at 10:30 at night, it called for him to get out there in the parking lot and do some drills. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I've done a lot of combines in my life. I've never quite seen that. And it's not to say that people don't go out of their way to stick to schedules and all these different things, but it was just, it stood out to me because I happened to just be crossing paths when that happened and taking that in. And then the next day found out that it was Will Howard specifically. So when he went out there and performed the way that he did, I was, I'm not going to lie, I was a little disappointed because you're looking for something and that didn't live up to it. But I think Shedeur Sanders is correct. One, gives him every justification to not perform based on how herky-jerky that can be. Like I mentioned, it's like I mentioned in the past couple of weeks. To me, the combine drills specific to quarterbacks are like the first day of Senior Bowl practice. You've never practiced with these other players that you're on the field with ever before. Many of them you don't know. Many of them you don't even know names. You're out there calling out numbers and stuff like that because it's very different. And then by day 2, you start to see a little more chemistry. You start to see a little more about what it's actually supposed to look like. There is no day 2 at the combine. Like, that's your drill.
Yeah.
That's your session. That's your opportunity to get it right. Some people do. Some people don't. So,
well, and especially a prospect like Shedeur Sanders, that in terms of the general public, for whatever reason, people are looking for any inkling of a reason to pounce on him and say he's not worth a first-round draft pick. If Shedeur Sanders thinks his guy at the combine, who he just met 5 minutes ago, is going to run an out route and the guy runs a comeback, Shedeur Sanders is the one that looks bad, right? Mm-hmm. Not that receiver. And then the masses take to social media. Now, where the dividing line is on how much that actually impacts his draft stock in regards to coaches and scouts, I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure exactly how privy coaches and scouts and GMs watching those drills are to exactly what those quarterbacks are supposed to be throwing on any given drill moment to moment. But it's just the risk reward of it. Yeah. And a big criticism of it, too, is, he doesn't want to compete. Like, these dudes all, for the most part, played high-level college football. So I've never understood questioning the competitiveness.
It's a lazy thing.
Of someone who doesn't want to throw at the combine after we just watched them for an entire college football career every Saturday. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
They are being advised, many of them, against, not necessarily against their will, because there's nothing to say that, it's against their will, but they're being told, hey, this is not in your best interest to do this way. And it's oftentimes not. I wonder, it's always going to be a part of the conversation. Like the testing at the combine is always going to exist. The athletic testing at the combine is always going to exist because it's a television product and they have to have something to put on television. Like they've changed the entire schedule of this thing so that they can broadcast it live. But, Milroe, for example.
I'm shocked he didn't run the 40.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Just because you didn't want to do the throwing sessions does not mean that you didn't have to do any of it.
That felt like the thing that was going to have everybody buzzing about him after Indy. I am actually blindsided he did not run the 40.
So just a few of the standouts to me, specific to the testing, from what I was able to take in Indy. I thought Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas, had a really nice combine performance, certainly a 4.4 flat in the 40, plenty fast for him, given I think a lot of people expected him to run a bit slower. I thought that when you look at, as you brought up, Nick, how do you say it, Emanuari, the safety? Emanuari, the safety out of South Carolina. I thought he was an interesting tester. Shamar Stewart, who I asked Coach Mack about on Friday, the edge out of Texas, had a nice testing day. And
how about Dante Thornton?
Dante Thornton is also somebody who I brought up needed to perform the best in the testing portion of it, and I thought that he came through nicely.
Second best among receivers with a 4.3 flat, just barely getting beat by Matthew Golden, who probably made himself some money. The Texas receiver with a 4.29.
We'll get back to Matthew Golden a little later on. Well, actually, speaking of Matthew Golden, interesting conversations coming out of the Combine, specifically the tweets from former NFL general manager Mike Tannenbaum saying, I had a feeling going into the testing, and the testing only confirmed it, that Matthew Golden would be the number one wide receiver. And then people whose opinions that you've trusted over the course of your entire lifetime consuming the draft, like Todd McShay, saying, yeah, you know what? That Matthew Golden guy, that's my wide receiver one.
I think when it's all said and done, I'm just going to have him my number one receiver. Matthew Golden is a lightning rod. His ability to get in and out of breaks, his like his snap, his sharpness, how crisp he is his secret sauce. And then his ball skills too. You think about some of the big catches.
Body control.
And so when Golden comes out today and runs a 4.29 and has the workout that he had, I was thrilled for him, man.
5'11", 190.
Yeah.
If he's 1 inch taller and 10 pounds heavier, I don't think we're even having the conversation. This kid's 6 foot, 200 pounds. I think he's the number one wide receiver on the board. I see the best route runner in this class when I watch the tape. And then you see the guy who's got the speed to take the top off the coverage. And some of these catches that he made down the stretch where he's, having to bend backwards and twist around and snatch the ball out of the air. And he does it naturally. It wasn't like, wow, I just made, look at me, I just made this crazy catch for once in my career. Like, he could do that repetitively.
I just trust him more.
So that is Todd McShay on his podcast. I believe it's just the McShay Show now, doing it for the Ringer, some draft analysis there. We'll have more of that throughout the course of the show. Ron Slay is going to join us. Coming up next, Tennessee obviously had a huge win at home over the weekend over Alabama. Slay was on the call for, which game was he on the call for?
Texas A&M, Florida.
Which ended up also being a
big win for Florida.
Game. So we will talk to Slay about how things stand in the SEC and a huge win for the University of Tennessee coming up next. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions are keeping you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Not just any financial firm, they're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind, so call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Burt Bertelkamp, a national treasure for all time. Bob Kessling on the call, the Vol Network. That's right, you didn't miss here. Jemai Mashack from 35 feet.
Knocking down.
79-76 for number 5 Tennessee over number 6 Alabama at Thompson Bowling Arena. That lovely voice that you hear is the presence of Ron Slay, 3HL 3-6 TV's Ron Slay. Doing a little basketball over the weekend for the SEC Network. What the hell is that?
That's some good stuff right there, Buck. You need to, if you inject that into your little life, your little voice will be back.
No, I've been taking juice shots like you.
This is some good stuff.
I had a turmeric, lemon, honey, and all kinds of other stuff in my juice shot this morning.
It's not helping. I don't know what you did.
Did you hear the way I sounded when I answered the phone? I promise you, it's helping.
Compared to now?
Based on how this has gone. I've warmed it up a little bit.
They're my people down there, too.
Yeah,
they'll bad boy right here. You want to hit the pan? Have you ever had this?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh yeah, come on over. Do this on camera.
He's gonna hate that. Don't wait. Those things cost like $12. Don't waste that on
Make
him.
sure you don't spit it back out, dog.
No, this is not a puff pass type of situation. Not everybody gets to come in here and start ripping on Slay's
I don't
juice
shoot this
shot.
whole thing, right? It's sip on it.
Nah, because it's for me. But you take half.
But in theory, you are supposed to drink the whole
You
thing.
drink this whole thing.
Now that's a little bigger than the average one, but Ron Slay is a little bigger than the average.
Now get a little bit more of that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. That is pain.
Is there ginger in that?
What'd you
Ginger
lizard
in that
lip
too.
it for? He just put his whole mouth on it.
Yeah, as if that stops it.
Listen, you know how many times I've been at the bar and been passing shots around like this? Think I'm worried about what Pan got going on?
Well, you benefit, though, from the fact that you drink room temperature Tito's and nobody wants to sip off your shot glass, typically. Ron Slay here with us because the Vols got a tremendous win. Again, Mashack doing it. Mashack shocking. In that moment, I told them I was watching it on a monitor while I was doing some other stuff over the weekend.
Yeah.
And had the volume down. I saw the shot. I threw my hands up in the air to celebrate, and then I saw them interviewing Mashack after the fact. I said, surely not.
It wasn't him.
That was Chaz Lanier, wasn't it?
Who was that?
No, get him out of here.
Who was that man with those dreads?
He's even telling ESPN in the post game interview, that's not my game. I don't take that shot.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to. I wasn't even supposed to be in that spot. He said, I don't even play this spot. So that's the funny thing. But I will say, man, that kind of embodies the last 30 seconds, last minute, embodies Mashack's career. It's just who he is. You know what I'm saying? We understand the moniker. It's not about me. Think about these selfless plays made till that shot. You got the box out that was missed that he was able to get, and go and get 2 free throws. Don't touch the rim on the free throws. Now, mind you, a little while ago, Chaz Lanier had an opportunity on Vanderbilt to put the Vols tie the game, send us in overtime. And if you want to pick somebody to be on the line, it's either Zakai or Chaz, maybe Gainey, but those two come to mind immediately. He went up there and knocked him down. I was saying to myself, oh, come on, Shaq, give us 1. He gave 2 like it was nothing to it. You know what I mean? After that, you go down and give another selfless play off of your guy and get a jump ball. That was not who he was defending. You get a jump ball in that situation. He switched twice on the baseline out of bounds situation. That right there, then you get into a spot where you're not supposed to be. But given the opportunity, you make the most of it because it's not about me. You get that opportunity. It's not about you so much that Alabama said it's not about you either. Matter of fact, we're going to put our 5-man or our 4-man on you. Y'all, matter of fact, don't even guard him. Watch him. That was a situation like, hey, man, watch him. Make sure he don't do nothing crazy with the ball. But make sure you don't leave Zakai. Make sure you don't leave Chaz. Make sure you don't leave Gainey. Zakai was the inbounder. He inbounded the ball, and the man went to him immediately where he couldn't get it back. He made that shot, man. Everything he's gone through the last 2 weeks, I thought that right there was the blowing out of the birthday cake.
Do you remember the Tennessee women's basketball game against South Carolina? I think SEC tournament,
Yes.
was it? Where we had them beat.
The game was over.
And was it Camila Cardoso
Yes, exactly
that drilled
what it was.
I think the only made 3 of her South Carolina career? That's what it reminded me of, but this time favoring Tennessee. Not that Jemiah's never hit a 3 before.
Right. But from that spot, from that deep, with that much pressure, with a 6'11" guy closing out on you, like the reach was there. And I don't know if Jeremiah Mashack's ever jumped that high on his jump.
I mean, he had to get up.
Like what?
Yeah.
Like if he jumped, this is my guy, so I'm hard on him. If this guy did that same way, he jumped the same way on that jump shot like he does when he attacked the rim, half of those layups would be dunks. Like, do that same thing when you go into the rim, dog. Yeah. Like, we know. Okay, now
Don't show me you can do that now. Now I know.
Yeah, now.
You screwed up now.
Every single time. So you go in there and you do a little power layup on 2 feet. We're looking at you like, all right, buddy. Come on, dog. Where's the sub at? You know what I mean? But, man, shout out to him, dog. Like, the fans were asking. Rod Clark had to come out and defend him. I went out and doubled down on it, and that was on Tuesday. And like fans were saying, man, we're a better team without Jeremiah Mashack in there. That's not true.
Where are you today?
Yeah, exactly. And then I can't wait till little Zach Lyons walks in here and gets in that little chair. I hope you got tacks in that chair. And I hope he has to sit on him and it pierces his little butt every time he sits. And I hope at every time he gets a break, he got to get up and pop down on them tacks over and over. Yeah, like, ooh, who put this right here? Ooh. And that's Tennessee in your little behind. Poking your little behind, piercing your little behind, sir. Because I asked him leading up to it, Buck, hey, man, big game, dog. You want to put something on the line? I'm not worried about that game. We'll probably beat them by double digits.
I'm not worried about that game.
I said, yeah? Well, all right. Well, all right.
We like to use a phrase around here, Slay. Sit on it and spin.
Oh, he sit on it doing cartwheels, get back up off of it, do a somersault on it.
360. All the way around.
Yeah, and keep going, though.
The Camila Cardoso thing, I think that was her first career three. Like, that was
It was her first career made three. I think she had only attempted like one other. Yeah. She was at Syracuse, right? Yeah. She transferred from.
She banked it.
Yeah, buzzer beater at
crazy.
the death, but to prevent that huge upset. It was, same kind of feeling.
She made someone lose their job.
Yeah, that's true. If Tennessee wins that game, you think Kelly Harper's still the coach?
What?
Yeah.
If they beat South Carolina.
They got no choice but to be in that tournament. Like, no choice.
You almost by default. The implications, and we'll see, obviously seeding is yet to be determined. We got to get through conference tournament and things like that.
Yep.
But the resume booster that win is at that late stage of the regular season, Slay, there are not that many opportunities like that for any team in college basketball. Tennessee getting that win, handing Alabama a loss like that. Maybe Alabama still ends up on the top line. They're a good team, and they may well still deserve it. But that even opens the door for Tennessee at this point. Talk about the implications of that.
Yeah, that right there, and to your point, Buck, before going to Tennessee, Alabama still can go get a 1 seed. That's how crazy this league is right here. But you make up for the losses that you had when you got beat at Vanderbilt. The way Kentucky was able to sweep you, that right there kind of made up for one of those losses, and probably heightened your resume even more to get you that 1 seed and lock it in. So now you have Ole Miss at Ole Miss, which you could drop that and still beat South Carolina at home and still remain right there in the 1 seed. What people, I think, got to realize, and fans also, they're not necessarily taking into account of your losses. It's more about your wins this year. For some reason, I don't know. I've never heard it be about this. Like, usually the losses are kind of held against you. I don't know if it's just the league, but it's more about the wins that you get and the collection of those that you get that kind of determines where your seeding is when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So being able to beat a top 10 team like that, that was huge. That was huge. And to be able to take a team like Auburn to the brink, even though you lost that game, it shows that this upper echelon, it is Florida, it is Tennessee, it is Alabama, it is Auburn. When you think of the SEC, Missouri too, right there before they faltered a little bit. But it's big. They're on the one line, no question about it. The worst that could happen would you be a second two. You know what I'm saying? If you don't win a game in the SEC tournament, you drop these next two, you still going to be fine. The hay's in the barn for them.
Ron Slay, TV's Ron Slay. You can watch him on the SEC Network. You can hear him 3 to 6 on 3HL.
Hear me.
So that shot, to me, I think of Skylar McBee and the 3 against Kansas. CeeLo, the Lofton 3 over Kevin Durant against Texas. Is this shot by Jemai right up there in that category with some of the biggest moments in that building's history?
Absolutely. I think back to my era, Isaiah Victor going down to the swamp, forcing double overtime with a fadeaway that came back off of a rebound with, Udonis Haslam and Brent Wright in his face, and he's 6'10", 6'11", turning around and send us into the first overtime or the second overtime. But that was a Final Four Florida team. Tony Harris doing the same thing in order for us to sweep Florida that year, getting a running layup, similar to what Jordan Gainey did at Illinois. Very similar with the left hand. That was huge. It's right up there, dog. That was big time. I'm trying to think another one through in Bruce's era that was pretty good.
I'm trying to think at home. I mean, at home, it has to be just on the Mount Rushmore of moments, singular moments in that building since it opened in the 90s.
Yeah, that's probably it. I would lean on that as far back as I can remember. That would be one of the ones, and the ones you also named, man. It's hard to come by because a lot of those times you want games to end like with a free throw or somebody missed something, but for you to walk off, like that's storybook.
4 straight wins for Barnes now against Nate Oates in Alabama. Alabama has.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
4 straight.
Say that louder because a lot of people don't realize that.
Well, and it's an Alabama team that for multiple seasons in a row now has averaged over 90 points on the season. In those 4 wins, Tennessee has held Alabama to 70 points per game. And there was a time, Slay, where I thought this was a horrendous matchup for Tennessee. So what has changed about Alabama-Tennessee from those first few meetings that Nate Oates just had Rick Barnes' number to now holding them to 70 points per game for 4 straight at the time where they have been at their peak offensively in the last couple of years?
Man, them knowing who they are, getting up for the challenge, always feeling like the underdog going into these games, regardless of how much talent you have. I remember when Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield and those guys went down to Auburn and got beat, like they still, even though they were the better team, still felt like the underdogs. You always feel like the underdog walking in this matchup for some odd reason. But I think the other part is you being the upper echelon of where the SEC lies. You walk into it and you understand, like, the championships run through Alabama and Auburn, through the state of Alabama. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. When you the people that go in there and get one is the SEC tournament for Tennessee, getting a regular season title, getting one with Grant and Admiral and those guys. Like, you still don't get mentioned in a sense. Like, I fight it all the time. If you look at what you just said about his record with Nate Oates is he won 4 straight. You look at it also with Bruce Pearl, who's had really good teams. The home teams won those matchups. You know what I'm saying? So they should be always mentioning it and understand what Cal and them got going, what he had going on in Kentucky was right there as well. But it's where Tennessee is, man. I wonder where they'll be in 4 years. You know what I'm saying? That's why I keep on preaching, man, savor these moments. Like, we watch this in football. Buck deals with this in basketball for an eternity.
Not on Wednesday night, baby. Eat it, Penn State. Eat it.
Did get him. But that's what you look at and you're like, man, dog, like, why is everybody so up in arms? You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's not enough. You got it. Yes, everybody wants to get to the Final Four. Everybody wants to win a national championship. They don't give out cold national champions. They don't do it. It's only one team that does it. So to be able to be on that journey and understand the last 3 years, you consistently got better. Made it to the second round. You went to the Sweet 16. Last year, you went to the Elite 8. Like, what are you not enjoying about this ride? A blown call with Carson Edwards? Zach Edey not getting no fouls? Like, what are you not enjoying about the ride that the players, even with us always saying, all right, y'all, I understand this offense go cold, it's going to be tough. Like, but when are they not right there?
Yeah, I kind of almost compare it, and just because I'm coming off a week at the Combine and there was still a conversation about this, Steelers fans and Mike Tomlin, they win all the time in the regular season. And listen, they lost 5 straight to end their year.
Right.
A disappointing result. Pittsburgh has championship expectations.
Yes.
They had as many Lombardis as anybody until the Tom Brady Patriots. But they are, I mean, every time I do a game in Pittsburgh, Slay, I get in an Uber, and all they want to talk about is how bad Mike Tomlin is.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what I would do? for a Mike Tomlin-like presence in any of my sports lives.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you get so, and I get it, right? Championships are the expectation.
No question.
But in the sport of basketball, in a tournament like March Madness, I don't think that is a fair judgment of how good this program has had it under the decade plus now that Rick Barnes has been overseeing it.
They don't see it. And sometimes I think you need to go through losing to understand what you got. Let me go on and put it this way. Auburn is the number one team in the country, and they're the number one team in the country for a reason. They got the National Player of the Year, in my opinion, and that's without question. It ain't even close. I understand potential and all of that, but when you talk about what Janai Broome brings to Auburn, it's different. You know what I'm saying? Cooper does a great job. Derek Queen does a great job at Maryland. Like, you got plenty of guys around the country that do a great job. There's no impact like what Janai Broome brings. But they had this team last year. So to your point, this same team was just as hot going into the NCAA tournament. So to your point, all it takes is one game. Baker Mazar gets thrown out. What if Baker Mazar twisted his ankle? It don't take number one game, dog. That's why it's so difficult to do. You can be the best team in the country, and Oakland come out of nowhere and get hot, and a guy off the bench plays like Caleb Grill from Missouri and gets you out of there. St. Peter's,
Loyola,
it happens. It only takes one, man. So you go in there and you bat your eye and you think you're supposed to be there, and you'll be right back home quickly. You better enjoy it.
We need to talk about Vanderbilt.
Absolutely.
Because Vanderbilt upsetting Missouri.
Absolutely.
All but securing their first NCAA tournament berth in some form or fashion since, I don't know, when's the last time Vandy has been in the tournament that way? We were celebrating Stackhouse getting to the NIT.
Maybe 6 years.
No,
How many years did Bryce Drew have? Did he get 4?
No, I want to say
they haven't been to the tournament since 2017.
That might have been Stallings last year.
It might have been his last year.
I think that's Stallings last year. Bryce Drew never went.
Well, yeah, he didn't go. But I'm saying, did he get 4 years? Because Stack got 4 years, so that would be 8 years.
I don't think so.
Bryce was 16 to 19. So Bryce Drew did have their last tournament appearance.
Was it NCAA?
Yeah,
they
were bounced in his first year. They were bounced in the first round.
But to your point, that's a carryover Stallings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Darius Garland got hurt with him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Neesmith got hurt.
It's pre-Darius Garland.
Yeah.
How impressive is the job that, and I don't want to just make it about the coaching staff, but Mark Byington brought in these players. They utilized the transfer portal. The program that Vandy is starting to build momentum on and really has hit the ground running in year one under Byington. Speak to that if you would.
I think, man, it is a testament to what Candace Story-Lee has been doing, not only in that sport, but the sports around it. Bringing in Shea Ralph, that was different. That made you squint your eye like, wait a minute, which direction are we going in? You see what she's doing. Go get Michaela Blakes, and you look at the recruiting, Camille Pierre, that's right there. You look at what Clark Lee was able to do. Like, a lot of it is head-scratching at first. You were able to go get a guy like Mark Byington, and I got to give it to the coach because when you watch the games, like, it wasn't them going and saying, look at the support. The Memorial Magic is there. Just walk in and go there. You had to go build something. The cupboard was bare. He went and got his guys from James Madison, brought some of them guys down there. Like,
hell is going on at James Madison, by the way.
Dude,
that's Signetti in Indiana.
Something in the Shenandoah Mountain water up there, man.
I know one thing. When you ride by it on interstate, it looks beautiful. I wouldn't want to play up there, but it looks beautiful to riding by. But Byington, man, being able to go get people that fit his system and understanding that in this situation, if you take care of home, you'll be fine. Van ain't went on the road and just shocked nobody. But they've taken care of home. You walk in there, and it's back to where it's supposed to be. If you can do that and throughout the season steal 3 or 4 games on the road, man, you're a top 25 program all day. That's all the fans been asking for. That's what Candace Story-Lee gave y'all. And when y'all was up there scoffing at her and turning your nose up like, Candace, come on, you got to do. Just be cool. Just be cool. Let her work. Let us see what she go get. And once you get it in, and now all of a sudden you got NIL supposed to be kicking in. Okay, now we're getting up with the times. But it's not one person to be able to do it. She got to get a lot more people on board. So when they get on board and you get to somebody like Byington, he able to go get his players, they're a problem at Vanderbilt. That's why I think they'll be good in Nashville. Because if that support comes over, which we saw 2 years ago when they upset Kentucky in the SEC tournament, like the fan base will go. It's right down the street. So go to that. Show them their support, treat it like a home game, and maybe, you know what I mean, you get a high seed and they firmly planted in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, they're in.
Yeah, no question.
Ron Slay is good enough to make some time. He's been reading to school children. He thought he thought he would carry
That's
over
what
that
this segment
theme. Yeah,
was.
this is essentially reading for school. Reading
Where's my
to school
book?
children.
Give me a book. Somebody give me a book.
I believe there's any number of books. If Lucas and I were literate, we could tell you what the books say, but we do not. That's why we have Ron Slay here to guide us through. Take a donut and get out of here.
Hi, dog.
That's Ron Slay, kind enough to hang out with us. Coming up next, Belichick is going to be on Hard Knocks, but it's not in the NFL. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. It is officially truck month at Two Rivers Ford, and I want to give a shout out to the number one selling truck in the United States. That's the Ford F-Series. The Ford F-Series trucks are literally the best trucks on the road. They got the durability. They got the towing capacity. They got the technology that rolls right over the competition. And when it comes to Ford trucks, no one has more trucks than Two Rivers Ford. Right now, Two Rivers has over 200 F-150s in stock. All the trims, all the colors, all the options, and you can get exactly what you want at Two Rivers Ford. They always sell their F-150s below MSRP, and everything is upfront and honest. It's not one of the dealers that advertises one price and then gets you something differently when you go to the lot. Two Rivers prides themselves on doing business with integrity. They even have a non-commissioned sales team, so there's no pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying experience. So take advantage of special truck month savings and test drive the baddest truck on the road at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world. Hard Knocks. People enjoy it. I think people enjoy the different phases of Hard Knocks that they've instituted. I think, I don't know, what's the last season of Hard Knocks, like the training camp Hard Knocks, the original Hard Knocks that the two of you watched?
Antonio Brown, Raiders.
I think it was the Houston Texans one where they had that cornerback who had the cool socks.
Is that might be even further back, right?
That is further back. Really? I'm surprised by that. You're the biggest football NFL fanatic of the three of us, Bert. I'm shocked that you go back that far.
I think most of it was because
that was Vrabel as the linebackers coach, right?
I didn't have an HBO login or whatever the hell it shows up on. I didn't have a login for forever, so I would have to just see the clips like everyone else, and then you get kind of used to just finding the clips on Twitter. Like, they're going to show you the best parts of the show. You're not going to seek it out. It's kind of like the Manning cast. I don't have to watch the Manning cast because all the best stuff from that broadcast is going to make it its way to Twitter.
I treat it the same. That's the
100%.
It's the late night TV theory, right? Nobody actually watches these late night shows anymore. They just see what goes the most viral on social media the next day.
They just fall asleep to it, like the George Lopez show. Like, I can't tell you.
I'm an avid consumer of the George Lopez show.
The best part of that is his wife. Smoke show. Absolute smoke show.
Which leads us an easy transition into Bill Belichick and his 24-year-old girlfriend, who are going to be the subject of Hard Knocks. Now, this is because of off-season Hard Knocks, because not a single NFL team was interested in doing it. And that is because Joe Schoen and the New York Giants look like dumbasses, right? We can all agree. I mean, there is not a worse look than Joe Schoen not even bothering really to negotiate with Saquon Barkley. Allowing him to, you are the voice of wrongness around here, so I think that's appropriate. Allowing him to go to a division rival in the Philadelphia Eagles, the best team in the division, and ultimately go on to win a Super Bowl, and then being asked about it this past week at Combine, and I'm going to say, lying, and saying that he was happy for Saquon Barkley winning a Super Bowl. I'm sure there's some degree of truth in that, but when he is fired, as a part of many reasons for the New York Giants' failures, I'm sure he's not going to be happy that Saquon Barkley won the Super Bowl and he was the guy that let him go.
Yeah, rarely do coaches of teams that were terrible the year before, right? Like, that is typically the case with Hard Knocks. Rarely do they come out looking. Nobody leaves an off-season edition of Hard Knocks saying, "Yeah, they've got it figured out. They know what they're doing over there," right? I mean, people focus on.
Well, we don't know because it's only been the one.
That was an extreme. But, but even the training camp ones. I don't think people left the Bears one feeling terribly great about Matt Eberflus.
That's recency bias, I think, because you had preconceived notions of the Bears going in, and they ended up being right. But I don't know. I think Hard Knocks bought a lot of those teams' goodwill, at least in terms of public perception, like the Browns. That's the last season of Hard Knocks that I watched, with Hugh Jackson as the coach, and then who was it? Todd Haley and Greg Williams. Basically, they weren't actively trying to undermine him for the head coaching job on that show, but they were kind of seen in a couple of different scenes trying to weasel their way into the interim head coaching spot with Hugh Jackson on the precipice of getting fired. I think that was the year that Baker Mayfield was the number one overall pick.
Yeah, it was Baker's rookie year. Tyrod Taylor was on the team.
The best part of that season was the defensive coaches getting in arguments and players being like, "Hey, coach, your voice sounds kind of bad. Do you need a..." "No bleep, I got a lozenge."
And the offensive line coach was
I thought you were making that a shot at me. Yeah,
no, we should have got you a lozenge. Bleep.
I brought a bag of them into work with these donuts. Belichick, though. So they're going to put Belichick on Hard Knocks, because if you're a college program, why wouldn't you do this? Are you kidding me? This is an excellent tool. This is Nick Saban doing, game day interviews times 10. This is how many episodes of Hard Knocks are in an offseason Hard Knocks? 7, 8? This is 8 primetime window, exclusively broadcast North Carolina football on Hard Knocks as a tool for recruiting, as a tool for boosting name, image, and likeness profiles for players. And it only happens because a 6-time Super Bowl head coach, I know he's got more Super Bowl rings than that with the Giants, but as a head coach, Bill Belichick won with the Patriots 6 times. They don't put North Carolina on Hard Knocks without Bill Belichick. You understand this. The more interesting component is Bill Belichick has been notoriously anti-media and anti-access. And now he's welcoming in HBO with open arms.
Well, he's doing a lot of things that would have sounded impossible for Bill Belichick just 2 years ago. Coaching in the college game, embracing this NIL transfer portal era. And people hide behind it's never been more like the NFL. And while that may be true, it doesn't mean it's anything like the NFL, where players have multiple windows in one singular offseason to exercise leverage against their respective team, right? Season ends, portal window opens. I want more money or I'm leaving. We got it figured out. We're good. We're done and dusted. Spring practice happens. Portal opens. I want more money to stay. And you got to figure it out all over again at every position. No, I'm still shocked. I'm still recovering from the shock of Bill Belichick being a head coach at the college level. So at this point, if he is willing to make that jump, I'm not even surprised that he's just embracing everything in totality that comes with it, including more of the media stuff.
If you're an NFL, because this probably is, the NFL's probably pissed about this until they realized, we can just go to Belichick. Like, that's way better than putting, and I don't mean to, take a dig at the Titans or anything like that, but would you rather have the Titans on off-season Hard Knocks or Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels? Like anywhere in the country, even including Tennessee, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure some Titans fans would be like, no, I want to see my team on Hard Knocks, this, that, and the other.
I'd rather watch that over them covering most teams.
Right, that's my point. So this ends up being a better alternative, and I honestly think that this opens a door, because Notre Dame has done stuff like this with Amazon Prime, I think, where they give them a degree of access that has kind of been unprecedented in the college world, just trying to capitalize on the brand that is Notre Dame football. If I'm Hard Knocks, I would much rather have my pick of college football programs, because the coaches are bigger personalities. The players have now platforms that they are going to want to continue to grow, and Hard Knocks would be a huge resource for that. And the schools, this is a huge opportunity for the schools to boost fundraising and to capitalize on all these different things, recruiting and the like. So I love it. I wonder what the NFL offices think about it, because it's still, Hard Knocks is an NFL property. So I wonder, how much of the league's concern is, well, this is still an NFL property. We want to make sure that we maintain Hard Knocks as an NFL property, but we'll open the door to a former NFL head coach, especially one like Bill Belichick. I don't know what that conversation looks like. Because if they give teams the options to skirt Hard Knocks in the NFL, they'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
The in-season Hard Knocks, I think you have to do it, because they have to have somebody to put on TV. Or not in-season, the training camp Hard Knocks.
We also learned Mike Lombardi's salary as the general manager of the North Carolina Tar Heels last week.
What's he making?
$1.5 million a year. That's up there with some of the highest paid defensive, offensive coordinators in college football.
That feels low.
So
for that job sounds like hell.
It does sound like hell.
Like Jim Nagy is going to be the general manager at Oklahoma now after running the Senior Bowl for so many years. $1.5 million to basically daily recruit your own roster on top of everything else that's out there.
There's not really a precedent. I don't know who the highest paid, the most notable GMs in college football for the most part. Andrew Luck at Stanford. Stanford's a private institution. I don't know what Andrew Luck's making up there. Lombardi's number came out, but we didn't have to know what Lombardi was making. I don't know the Vanderbilt situation at general manager. I don't know what
They've had a GM for a while.
Yeah, they were one of the first. They were kind of ahead of the curve on it, to be honest.
615-737-1045 is the number. The Titans have scheduled a bunch of early 30 visits with players who did not work out at the Combine. Some of the stars at the top of the draft. We'll tell you the latest coming up next.
12:01, good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL Scouting Combine is officially over, and now the Titans move towards top 30 visits with some of the top prospects in the draft, reportedly scheduling some early ones as Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter is scheduled to visit on Thursday, Cam Ward on Friday, and Shedeur Sanders next Monday. Travis Hunter will visit within the next couple of weeks. In NFL news today, the Philadelphia Eagles are planning to release six-time Pro Bowl corner Darius Slay, according to Adam Schefter. If he is designated a post-June 1 release, the 34-year-old would save the Eagles over $4 million against the cap with the release. In NFL news over the weekend, the Commanders acquired wide receiver Deebo Samuel in a trade with the 49ers, sending San Francisco a fifth-rounder for the 29-year-old. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So the combine is over, and now we get to really dig into the pre-draft process. We'll have free agency in 9 days from now, and we'll know even more about what this team needs, or, I mean, we know that this team needs everything, but how they're going to go about addressing the various needs that they have. And while we're working our way through the pre-draft process before April's event finally comes to pass, we'll have 30 visits. Now, 30 visits, the official 30 visits for players to come to Nashville, to the Titans headquarters, and to basically spend a day with the team. These are the most important get-to-know-you part of the combine process, because famously at the NFL Combine, the allotted time is 18 minutes before what happens?
It's an air horn, right?
An air horn goes echoing through the hallways and says, all right, that's enough of that speed dating for now. On to the next player, in order for teams to get through the 329 players that were invited to the Combine. The 30 visits, obviously much more selective. And for a team with the number one overall pick, critically important. All of this critically important to determining who makes the most sense, and if there is a player that makes the most sense, before a time where a draft trade or a pick trade is determined to be a better solution or a worse solution from actually picking a player. The 30 visits that the Titans have set up right now, at least the first of the 30 visits, the first four, will obviously have Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and the two quarterbacks. They will visit before the March 12th free agency period, and Paul Kaharski was the first to report that those four would be in the building prior to the new league year beginning. So first off the boat, first off the draft board, they're coming to town to get to know the team.
Now, Travis Hunter, that's the case as well for him, that he's going to be in here before March 12th?
Yes. Why is that of note? Or why is that your question?
I had just seen that he will be here within the next couple of weeks. I mean, scheduling stuff. Albert Breer tweeted today he will visit in 2 weeks, but it's an understandable goal that they want to have all those guys in before that March 12th mark, because this is unusually early, right, to get this many top prospects in immediately after the Combine, and it makes sense to have your ducks in a row before you attack free agency to get as good an understanding of these players as you can with who you might take with number one overall, as there are going to be phone calls and already have been phone calls to move out of it.
Titans also have 35 in the second round. They currently have no third-round pick at this point in time. So theoretically, they could use one of their 30 visits on a player that they might be interested in 35 as well. They could use it on a variety of different players that they might be interested in at 35. For the Titans, obviously, none of these players worked out at the NFL Scouting Combine, and it is something that they're not going to be necessarily putting them through their own workouts, but they will have the pro days. Abdul Carter is expected to be ready to go for his pro day. At least that's the opinion that he is expressing through his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, dealing with the stress reaction situation that was discovered in the medical evaluations in Indianapolis last week that kind of, I wouldn't say it turned the draft stuff on its head, but it does at least open the door for more of a conversation about All right, Abdul Carter may well be the best player in this draft class, but is he actually going to go with the number 1 overall pick, even though it's not a fracture, it's not something that's going to require surgery? If it's something that's going to have him ready for his pro day here in the next couple of weeks, then what's the big huff about? But anything that might impact, I mean, it's a bigger deal for Abdul Carter than it is for the teams, in my opinion, because it could impact his money. To be the number 1 overall pick is not just a point of pride, it's a point of finances. And there's still good money to be made in the first round, but it is tiered. So the money goes down the further down the draft order that you fall. So it's, I think, a bigger deal for Abdul Carter than it is for the Titans, for example.
Some people seem to not mind it at all and scoff at the idea that it should deter any team, and some seem to say stay away. I mean,
so who is saying stay away?
Well,
I have not seen anybody that I would regard as credible.
Talking about fan base reaction.
Fan base is different.
Yeah, but you don't think that there will be teams with that reaction that will be far more hesitant with the number 1 overall pick?
Well, there's only one team that has the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, but there are many teams trying for it. I suppose any team coming up for it will be coming up for a franchise quarterback.
They're coming up for a quarterback. So,
or just a top 4 pick in general.
I don't think it's, Lucas, if it required surgery, I would have a different conversation for sure. The fact that he didn't even know that he had it and was, playing through all this stuff anyway, like, could it potentially lead to a fracture down the road? That's what they're looking to, determine. But that it's a non-surgical resolution, okay, that's fine by me. That he's the best player in the draft, okay, that's fine by me. If he's the best player in the draft and if he's ready for, what's the NFL kickoff date? It's second weekend in September, typically. If he's ready by the second weekend in September, I don't care what his, what the stress reaction in his foot is on, February the 27th or whenever that news came out.
It's not nothing.
Right. It is a note to add to the conversation, but it is closer to nothing to me than it is something that should that should take Abdul Carter off your draft board in the first round. There's no need to veer to extremes. It's a note about a potential injury situation that has arisen with a player who is in contention for the number 1 overall draft pick. To me, nothing more. So Titans will hold private workouts when they visit prospects in their hometowns. They also have the opportunity to do that. Obviously famous, the visit that they had with Sweat, and that wasn't quite a workout. That was more like, all right, you just had a DUI a couple of days before you were scheduled for a 30 visit here. A couple of days before the actual NFL draft went down. We need to we are comfortable with you at 38 overall, but we're going to make damn sure that everything that we need to know about you, the player, and the person is buttoned up. And they ended up making that trip to Texas and visiting with his family and getting to know the player. And I think that on the whole, they were rewarded for that because Sweat was a good player last year. And his conditioning was not an issue. His weight was not an issue. He played far more defensive snaps than I expected him to play. And maybe he's not as impactful as you'd hope for him to be right out of the gate, but I think the promise is still there, and I believe that he's ready to put the work in. So all of that was paid off by putting in the extra legwork. It's going to involve Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Dave Ziegler, and Reggie McKenzie, the 2 assistant general managers. Well, I guess Dave Ziegler is the assistant general manager. Reggie McKenzie's title, I think, is just senior personnel advisor.
He is a vice president in the front office.
And that matters. But the top brass in the Titans front office are going to be involved in all of these things, and they bring a variety of different experiences and processes to try and nail this thing down as best as humanly possible. I think that for what you heard coming out of Indy is that the Cam Ward experience was good for teams that met with him, whether it be the Titans or otherwise. From a personality standpoint, Mike Borgonzi said on the radio show with us on Tuesday that basically his goal with specific to Cam Ward was, all right, are you this person all the time? This level of competitive, kind of he's a little bit of a bleep hole, right? He's kind of got an attitude to him in a good way that he is just constantly competitive at every turn, at least in the things that we've seen on social media of him. And Mike Borgonzi's goal was, all right, are you that person the whole way through? And can you obviously, as a side note or as a smaller piece of, can you answer my football questions? Do you have the necessary football intellect for the cut-ups that the coaching staff is going to show you, for the recall that we're going to require of you in these 18-minute speed dating cycles. Lucas, I'll tell you, and I'm sure this is an this is a sentiment echoed by everybody who was in Indy last week. I didn't have a single conversation with somebody who works with this team or another team that had Shedeur Sanders ranked over Cam Ward. Not a single person. And I won't act like I talk to every team in the league, but I've got a couple of different teams with people who are spread out at this point who I talk to throughout the course of the week, whether they be front office or coaching, and not a single one of them expressed Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward. Now, they don't have to tell me bleep, and that could be all smokescreen stuff, but I think that theme is going to hold true.
We are, I feel like, closer to, maybe it's not consensus, but we're closer to that than we were before the combine, I think, on who the number one, if a quarterback's going to go at one, and who it's going to be. I think there are people out there that love Shedeur Sanders, but it feels like Ward has a significant lead ahead of him in the public discussions about who the number one quarterback is in this draft.
So we'll see how the 30 visits go. Obviously, we'll keep you updated as the Titans bring these kids in to speak with them in the next, theoretically, if they're going to get them all done before March 12th in the next 9 days, that seems like a pretty tight timeline, but they weren't doing anything but interviews and medical evals, the four of them, up there in Indianapolis. So perhaps these things have been in the works for quite some time. You have
and
headlines?
It makes sense. A lot of headlines from Combine Week.
A lot of NFL headlines coming up next.
It's time for headlines with Lucas Panzika.
Jesus, it's like 2 minutes long.
It's the same amount of time that we do every single time.
Nobody believes that.
It's the same as it's always been.
Not a single solitary person believes that.
Ross believes it.
Was not going to, the trainee back there, was not going to get to this because it literally just dropped. So we were not going to start with Jimmy Johnson news, not the former NASCAR driver, but the Hall of Fame head coach. Jimmy Johnson, according to Front Office Sports just seconds ago, has announced his retirement from Fox. 30 years as an analyst for Fox Sports, and he is stepping away.
That's my Now, I won't act like I watch a bunch of these pregame shows because, game days are work days, and we host a 2-hour pregame show for the Titans radio network, so a lot of times I don't see this stuff. But when I have gotten the opportunity, like a bye week or if the Titans play Thursday night or Monday night, and I get to watch the Sunday broadcast, the Fox is my favorite. With Strahan, with Howie Long, with Jimmy Johnson, now Gronk. I think Gronk has gotten better. Like, I don't think Gronk is like my favorite person on television, but I think he brings something to the table at very least. Fox just has Terry Bradshaw. Even though Terry, will say some things that get him into some trouble from time to time.
Yeah, it's all part of the fun.
It is a part of the fun, and Jimmy Johnson has been a huge part of that. I had no idea it had been 30 years. That Jimmy Johnson.
That's crazy.
Basically, I have been alive on this earth for 31, and that Jimmy Johnson has been the Fox NFL pregame host, or one of them, for 30 years is crazy to me.
I mean, he's one of those people whose appearance just has hardly changed as he's gotten older. I mean, he looks really good for 81, going to be 82 this summer.
Especially for as much time as he spends on that boat in the sun.
He just announced it with Colin Cowherd live on Cowherd's show. So, wow, that's what a legendary run for Jimmy Johnson, a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
3 Hall of Fames for Jimmy Johnson, 2 Super Bowls in Dallas. He is an icon. So congratulations to him.
No doubt. Okay, so 2 football headlines. We already know, this dropped during the show on Friday, that the LA Rams and Matthew Stafford have agreed to a restructured contract that's going to keep him in LA. The team officially announced it over the weekend as well. We don't have financial details, but this obviously comes after the Raiders and Giants made an aggressive push. And that, to me, is the more interesting facet of this. Not that Stafford's going to remain in LA, but that the Raiders reportedly were willing to pay Matt Stafford up to $100 million, up to the important, part of that, but $100 million over 2 years. It was clear that both the Giants and Raiders were willing to make a massive swing at the quarterback position like that, despite being in a position within striking distance to move up to the number 1 pick in a potential trade with the Titans.
Can you name me the only... Well, he's not even technically on their roster. The Giants don't have a single quarterback on their roster.
Yeah, Drew Lock's a free agent.
Tommy DeVito is an exclusive rights free agent, so he's basically on their roster, but not until they offer him a tender. Aaron Rodgers' role in this, because we played that Ty Dunn clip a couple of weeks ago of him saying, there's very real potential that Aaron Rodgers may not have a job in the NFL. For what he brings or really doesn't bring to the table at this point in time.
Yeah, that he could get iced out Bill Belichick style.
Compounded with, the personality quirks, we'll call them, that Rodgers has. So if you're the Giants, who is the best option at quarterback? And why is it Sam Darnold?
Well, the Giants reportedly are considering Aaron Rodgers after they struck out on Stafford. And
they have to consider everything.
Sure. And they had interest in Sam Darnold last offseason. Obviously, he ended up in Minnesota. So it's very clear that the Giants' priority is to land a veteran starter that is not named, not one of the Jacoby Brissetts of the world, but more in that Aaron Rodgers to Sam Darnold vein. So
future Titans legend Jacoby Brissett.
Again, this is all building up to be just disastrous, I feel like, for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, operating under this umbrella of impatience, public impatience from the owner. it never bodes well, right? When we talk
They
about,
should have just fired him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to retain somebody and then come out and say,
this is the Eberflus of this year. Golic Jr. said it earlier on the show. This is Eberflus from last year.
And it would be different if the roster was in a position to do something, right? It
Not
would
even
be
close.
So different if you had the pieces and maybe you're 1 or 2 away and the owner is saying, no, we better figure it out this year. The New York Giants are not in a figure it out this year window. It's going to take a while. They have a couple of foundational pieces, certainly one on each side of the ball. Thinking of Malik Neighbors on offense, Dexter Lawrence on defense, and so on. But this is screaming desperation, overpay swing for someone like a Sam Darnold, and it just not spelling immediate results, which could get them fired.
All right. This was a graphic that I saw one of those aggregator accounts, Dov Kleinman, put out on Twitter, and I think it's an interesting question just based off that headline. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I do think it's an interesting question. If I made you pick from these teams on who it's harder to be a fan of right now, and I gave you the Jets, the Giants, the Browns, the Titans, the Cardinals, and the Jags, who is it a harder team to be a fan of right now?
Jets.
It's the Jets.
Yeah, it's the Jets. I mean, I know the question is about right now.
Yeah. Cowboys, but Cowboys deserve a seat at that table.
Yeah, they do. But the history of lack of championships and owner incompetence is just too, it's just too front-facing with the Jets to go anywhere else every time. And we didn't even talk about Woody Johnson getting an F in the NFLPA surveys.
Yeah, Clark Hunt does too, but
no, he didn't get an F this year.
Not this year.
It went up to a C, I think, this year for the Chiefs. So it got substantially better for the Kansas City Chiefs owner.
Buy you more things.
Yeah, but I'd go Jets and then Jags because you just have a history
over Cowboys. I know Cowboys have won championships, but that's 30 years ago.
Yeah, Cowboys are in a particularly frustrating place.
I might go Jets, Browns, Cowboys, Bears, Jags.
Oh, Jags all the way down there?
I mean, it's still top 5, bud. The Bears are miserable.
Yeah, but the Bears have a franchise quarterback and feel okay about their franchise quarterback. Like Caleb Williams had a rookie year.
Yeah, but even they don't feel they feel worse about him versus the guy who went after him, Jaden Daniels. Like you have that hit in the face every time you turn around. He just played in an NFC Championship game.
But Jaden Daniels overshadowed the fact that Caleb Williams had a perfectly normal rookie year for a starting quarterback, right?
And
got better. He had a much better rookie year than a lot of the best quarterbacks in the NFL did. So I'm not ready to write off Caleb Williams. I feel better as a Bears fan than I would as a Browns or Jets or even Jags fan because now you've got a substantial sample size as a Jags fan on the savior that was Trevor Lawrence, and the discussion is the money is just too much relative to the production. So, interesting questions. Darius Slay has been released or will be released by the Philadelphia Eagles. 34-year-old corner, 6-time Pro Bowler. His last Pro Bowl season was 2023, and according to Adam Schefter, the Eagles are going to release Slay if he is designated a post-June 1 release. They will save over $4 million against the cap.
So he's interesting because the Philadelphia defense obviously was excellent this year. And, at this stage of his career, he's been in the league since 2013. He's going to be, he's just recently 31, I think, or 34. He turned 34 in January, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't have a bad year by any stretch of the imagination, but he's obviously past the peak of his powers. And if you look at a couple of different metrics that you would judge him by, he's certainly not the best corner at this point. He is primarily outside, almost exclusively outside. Him and Honey Badger, I saw a report that Honey Badger is also expected to be released by the Saints, who are in cap hell. So they're going to probably let go of a few notable players on that roster.
He is 32, will be 33 in a couple months, yes.
So for a team like the Titans, for example, let's just use Washington as a model. Slay or Honey Badger or any of these veteran parts. Now, it's difficult here because theoretically the Titans should have their secondary. Their secondary just didn't play, basically. They did. They obviously had a secondary, but save Amani Hooker, none of the original pieces and parts of that secondary that were expected to be out there actually ended up out there. But
Honey Badger, by the way, remarkably available in the last 8 years. He hasn't missed a game since 2021.
So I guess I'm looking at them like within the Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner purview for Washington last year. Like, can you get one of these players on a 1-year deal, come in and help build up the culture, play meaningful snaps for you? Because the Titans obviously have a need at safety in the case of Honey Badger. If Slay was coming here, he might, I don't know, at the end of a lot of defensive backs' career, they consider a positional change from corner to safety. I don't know if that's in Slay's mind or not, but it could happen. Is that something that would benefit the Titans? I think potentially for the right price.
Yeah, Ertz had a more productive season than anybody could have projected.
Ertz was really good.
Over 600 yards, 7 touchdowns was a great option for Daniels in his rookie year. Speaking of Washington, the Commanders have added to that pass-catching core, acquiring 29-year-old receiver Deebo Samuel in a trade with the Niners that we learned about over the weekend. They send San Francisco a 5th-round pick. Deebo has 1 year left on his current deal, a cap hit of over $15 million. He had 670 receiving yards with 3 touchdowns last year, and the rushing yards, that number took a dip with 136 and only 1 score.
So from Kyle Shanahan to Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that.
I saw Mina Kimes tweet they're going to lead the league in screens next year. So is Deebo a receiver in Washington, or is he whatever the hell he was in San Francisco? Like this hybrid H-back, running back, wide receiver type player, slot. The positional versatility of San Francisco's offense, coupled with what an excellent mind offensively Kyle Shanahan has elevated Deebo's profile. I don't know how, like, if Deebo's just an outside wide receiver or just a slot guy.
It's a deep running back room over there.
Right? So are they just going to have Deebo playing wide receiver? Because that, I think, lessens a little bit. It's not like Deebo's not still a good player, but I do think that lessens, like, how special Deebo has been over the course of his career to what he might be now. Because he's not a size matchup problem necessarily in the way that A.J. Brown or even Devante Smith has excellent length. Like, he's a squatty little guy. He's like a bowling ball out there. He's also made of the same material as bowling balls are made of, so it makes him difficult to tackle, so it doesn't mean that you can't still have that. But I'm just curious about the deployment. For a 5th-round pick, it's a good deal. Sounds like they're going to take on the full freight of the contract.
Sounds that way.
I want to know, San Francisco, I think, stood to incur like a $35 million dead cap hit, if they traded him. And I don't know if there's anything to indicate that that's not the case, because that made it, I know John Lynch talked a great deal at the Combine about, we're going to, grant his request. We're going to help him find a trade partner and a 5th-round pick to Washington. That's not a bad deal at all. But I don't know if San Fran's still eating that much cap there because of the way that they move money around on his deal.
And they're about to pay Brock Purdy
a lot.
So we're seeing those weapons already dwindling significantly around Purdy.
So this question is twofold then. How much closer to the Eagles, for example, does Deebo get the Commanders? I don't think it makes that big a difference, but it's an interesting piece.
It fills a big need. I mean, they really did not have a second receiving option outside of Terry McLaurin.
Diami Brown
had 300 yards last year. Zach Ertz was their second leading receiver behind Terry McLaurin.
Maybe Diami Brown had a decent playoffs, which is why I'm doing.
Yeah, he popped up. He did pop up. I mean, they got good contributions from Zacchaeus, from Noah Brown, who popped up with, in that 500-yard range. But in terms of consistent pass-catching threats, if you took away Terry McLaurin against the Commanders last year, you were in a pretty good spot. So he fills a need, and he can be productive there. We're not thinking Deebo Samuel will ever get back to that 1,400-yard season back in 2021, but I like it. I mean, a 5th-round pick, and you had somebody who just turned 29 and can help this offense.
Now, I don't dislike it, but I'm not like, I don't think it's the greatest deal in the world, I guess is my point. And also for San Francisco, like, all right, you're going to start taking away some of Brock Purdy's toys. How much, that division is up for grabs. I know the Rams were the best team out of the bunch last year. The other two at the top of it dealing with injury. Arizona, showed some fight for a while and kind of petered out. How much less special is Brock Purdy going to look if you start to take away some of his toys? How old is Kittle? Kittle got to be 33, 34 at this point. Juszczyk's got to be up there as well, the fullback.
He's 31.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I think George Kittle is so much older?
He'll turn 32 in the middle of next season.
All right. Maybe it's not as big a deal as I'm making it. I just feel like Kittle's been around for an eternity.
Devante Adams, it feels like certainly has been around for an eternity. And the New York Jets are taking calls on the longtime Packer and then Raider and now New York Jet. They are open to trading him before the start of the new league year. This was Ian Rappaport on NFL Network talking about Adams and what the Jets are trying to do.
Sources say the Jets are now taking calls on big-name receiver Devante Adams. My understanding is this a process going to go on the next couple of days. If they cannot find a trade partner for Devante Adams, I am told they are expected to release him. So moving on from Aaron Rodgers, moving on from his partner in crime, Devante Adams essentially came in together. Rodgers came in, then midway through the year, Devante Adams came in, thought they would get there, do something special for the Jets. Did not transpire like anyone had thought. Rodgers now gone. Devante Adams expected to be gone as well as a $35+ million cap number, so really no surprise. The most important thing here, Devante Adams is now on the move as the Jets have a clean break and start free.
This is an obvious move, it feels like, for the Jets. There's an out, too. If they release Devante Adams, it's a dead cap hit of just over $8 million. And like Rap Sheet said, over $38 million in 2025 and in 2026. Devante Adams was sneaky productive last year. I didn't realize just the numbers he put up with the Jets. At some point, everybody kind of stopped paying attention to the Jets, even though Rodgers was healthy and playing. But last season, 11 games with the Jets, he had 67 catches for 854 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, the dude can still play.
Well, he's also getting fed a lot of targets, like Garrett Wilson.
Absolutely, and they were trailing a lot.
You know,
so, sure, absolutely.
There's
That's a
some
huge
context that matters to those numbers.
He's 32. He'll turn 33 at the tail end of the 2025 season. But still, I mean, the production was there for Adams, who in totality with his Raiders numbers was a 1,000-yard receiver again last year.
Would you want him if he got cut? I don't think he'd want to be here.
What would the market be for Devante? I would take Devante Adams in a heartbeat. I just not sure what that market would be. He
Top of the market is going to make $40 million. Jamar Chase, whenever that deal gets done.
Yeah, but how close to top of market is Devante Adams at age 32?
Closer. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's a $30 million player, but
no.
But you're probably talking 20 plus.
Yeah.
For resume alone.
I'm probably good on 20 plus for Devante Adams.
You just said you'd take him in a heartbeat.
I would take him in a heartbeat, but the price matters, right? Like, Devante Adams can help your football team. He has not had a season under 1,000 yards since 2019, and even then he missed 4 games and was 3 yards short of a 1,000-yard season.
I can't believe we're doing in one show me saying I'm not interested in Devante Adams or Aaron Rodgers for the Tennessee Titans. But that's just kind of where things are at in 2025. They just need to draft one. Because somebody just asked me, Hugh on YouTube.
Hugh what?
Hugh.
Yeah, Hugh what? Give the man his respect and say his last name.
Hugh J.
That's not what it is.
Yeah. Okay, what is it?
Well, you read the comment.
Are you sure?
Look this man in the eye and say his name.
Attribute proper credit.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to pass on that one. You're never going to get me with one of those.
Until we do.
Until you do. What Hugh is saying in the chat is, Buck, in what round do you see the Titans targeting a wide receiver? And, like, I obviously think they're going to draft a wide receiver. I don't think that they're targeting a wide receiver in a certain round. Because the way... you know, it's not quite as casual as what Rand Carthon said, which famously kind of bit him in the ass a little bit. Roll the dice and play the board. That's not a realistic approach to the wide receiver, especially when you're drafting one in the 7th and then following up with one in the 6th who ends up being a healthy scratch for basically the last quarter of a season. In Colton Dowell and then Jaquan Jackson. So I wouldn't say that they're targeting a wide receiver in the draft necessarily, or in a draft round necessarily. But I think that they understand that they have a need, and they'll see how the draft plays itself out. And I would be shocked if there wasn't a wide receiver picked before the 5th round. Like, I would be genuinely stunned if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, and there wasn't a wide receiver on the Titans roster in the draft, because they've done the mercenary thing with Ridley. And Ridley, Callahan talked about figuring it out about halfway through the season with Ridley, and he ended up having 1,000 yards to his credit. But it has to be more cost effective. And Devante Adams coming in here he would probably make more than Calvin Ridley if you're signing him to a contract.
Yeah, with the cap number being what it is.
You've only got, in effective cap space? Yeah. It's like 44.
What do you have on Devante Adams other than his age, which is a factor? He's 32, but the production just hasn't dipped. I mean,
I know.
No matter what the circumstances were, the production has not gone down for Devante Adams in the last 7 or so years.
But he wants to compete. Like, if he gets cut, he's not going to choose a place like Tennessee. If his buddy's not here, like what reason would the Titans be an appealing landing spot for 32-year-old Devante Adams?
Well, it's hard to imagine Aaron Rodgers on a contender at the moment. So maybe that breakup will be finalized this offseason.
Last call for phone calls if you got them. Oh, my voice had done so well until that last segment.
No, it didn't. It sounded terrible the whole show.
I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Dixie Normus on the F&M Big Chat says,
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. Stephen A. back there, we got a birthday. A very happy, I'm going to kill you.
The old bait and switch.
I'm going to fight you in the street.
No,
Let's do it. Meet me at Starbucks, buddy.
Will the Starbucks Ian Rappaport, Jordan Schultz thing ever get old? I don't think so.
Will Lucas ever saying Dixie's name into the microphone not be funny?
It's weird for you to talk about somebody's enlarged male anatomy that way.
No, I'm just paying respect.
Such excitement.
I respect the F&M Bank chat. Dixie Normus on the F&M Bank chat says...
All right. It's just weird, your fascination with the male anatomy here.
Don't appreciate that Dixie changed his or her last name on the F&M Bank chat.
You think it's a woman that's pranking you with that?
Could be anybody. I don't profile.
Oh, my goodness. Last call for phone calls. Quickly, though, it is the radio show's 4th birthday. So we're very happy about that. It is also the 5th anniversary of the tornado. And that is obviously a much different situation. This is a day of mixed emotions for a lot of people. That is something 5 years ago that absolutely devastated my neighborhood, so many other communities here in Middle Tennessee, going back to 2020, March 3rd, in the middle of the night. I live in North Nashville. It was horrifying to see what happened to people's homes, to people's livelihoods, businesses, everything after. And then the very next week, I believe, was COVID. So it was compounded in the amount of pain and suffering that the city of Nashville dealt with at the time. And what I'll say, Lucas, in my neighborhood, I know you live in East, where that was also very much affected. People, that thing went as far as was on the ground for 50-something miles.
I was in Bellevue at the time when the tornado happened. It's hard to believe it was 5 years ago.
It is crazy. But I think that, we're still rebuilding in North Nashville and in Germantown specifically. But I'm always... This day is mixed emotions. One, because the radio show is cool and we're happy to have it, and it's been a lot of fun to do that over 4 years. A year after the tornado is when that started. But because I'm so grateful for the city of Nashville, for the people in Middle Tennessee who rallied around my neighborhood and so many others to support, to help rebuild, to come clean up, to bring chainsaws, to bring water, storage bins, all manner of things that people needed. We were without power, Lucas, in my neighborhood for 6 days. 6 days. And I'm fortunate to have, places and resources that I could go. But like North Nashville is a neighborhood, historically black neighborhood, a neighborhood that people have kind of, people have disparaged over the course of its history and kind of left for dead, for lack of a better term. I know it's now getting a great deal of influx of resources and people moving to town and obviously like that. But it gives me a good moment to, one, remember that tragedy, and two, to just be grateful for you guys, because the way that you stepped up and showed up and helped the people in my community, I know they won't ever forget it, and neither will I. So thank you for that 5 years after the fact. Hope everybody is, starting, at least if you were affected by that, have started to normalize 5 years later. But it's hard. Some people haven't. They're still rebuilding churches and houses and all manner of other businesses in my neighborhood. Last call for phone calls is what you got. 615-737-1045 is the number. How about Tommy up next?
Thanks, Buck. I'm really surprised about Devante having good records. I thought he kind of quit on Oakland when they were having a quarterback controversy up there, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think the Giants are in a 50-50 situation. They could, if they take Rodgers and he's successful, then they save their jobs. If they take Rodgers and he's not successful, they both know, the general manager and the coach know they're gone. I don't know. If I was them, I might take a chance on him, even though I'm not a big supporter of Rodgers because of his personality. But I wanted to see what you thought about that. Thanks.
Yeah, man, I don't think I'm interested in the Aaron Rodgers experience at all. I really don't. And the Devante Adams thing, like, I don't blame him. If I didn't like my work circumstance, and I think plenty of people would try and better their work circumstance. That's all I looked at Devante Adams' behavior as.
Dude can still play.
That's right. I mean, you just have to put him in a better situation. Keith is up next.
Hey, Buck. Hey, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in for Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen him play a couple of times, a small sample size, which, by the way, I wish you guys would extricate from your vocabulary, because it reminds me of every time I went to take a pee test for a drug test. It's like, oh, is that enough? Should I fill it up? Oh, just go ahead, fill it right back up. And I always try to. Well, anyway, let me get off that.
I'm sorry that's so triggering for you.
Huh?
Nothing.
Oh, anyway, you sound a little depressed, Buck. Bless your heart. Anyway, yeah, the couple of times I've seen him play, he seems in complete control of the offense. And there's almost an egotistical manner in which he goes about his business that I really like. But anyway, that's about it, Buck. I'm putting my vote in for Cam. I know it's not really a quarterback election, but I say grab the Cam. All right, man. Keep your stick on the ice.
I will keep my stick on the ice. Thank you. That's not depression. That is a week of combine that you hear in my voice. Those two things are probably mutually exclusive. Yeah, I like Cam Ward. Listen, if they are at number 1 overall, I disagree with Jordan Reed and Mike Golic Jr. Jordan Reed, who said if Mike Borgonzi's not interested in tying himself to a quarterback, he'd take Travis Hunter. Mike Golic Jr. said he would like Abdul Carter at number 1. If the Titans are at number 1, I say Cam Ward. But my preference is still to trade out because they have too many needs to justify, I think, not trying to capitalize on the number 1 overall pick that way. All right. Polls?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Which prospect made themselves the most money at the Combine? Tennessee Dog says the tackle from Mizzou. He'll be a first-rounder now. Armand Membu, the 6'4", 332-pound tackle.
4.91.
Yeah, he tested.
Hauling ass.
Tested pretty well. I don't care what an offensive lineman's 40 time is relative to offensive line play, but that is, again, half of this is just marveling at superhumans, and that is insane.
But I will tell you that The Athletic did an interesting piece on like correlating which drills in the Combine correlate to or project a position group's greatest success. And they came up with the 40-yard dash for the offensive line, which is kind of crazy to me.
All right. John and Tyler say Matthew Golden, the Texas receiver, a 4.29 40. That is a position with a lot of variance. Feels like there could be a lot of movement there. So I think I'd agree. I mean, there's some analysts going as far as to say he could be the first receiver taken in this draft. There's certainly not consensus at the top of that position. What interests you most about Hard Knocks with Bill Belichick? Jack says nothing at all. Tyler says not a damn thing. Blake says I want to see how he handles recruiting. It's interesting because name a football player on North Carolina's roster.
Oh, I can't.
You can't. Most people can't.
I can't.
The thing with Hard Knocks is, you get the under-the-radar guys that are the spotlight, but you also have star players. So that'll be interesting, because Belichick is the star of Hard Knocks. Saturday was the biggest regular season moment in Tennessee basketball since when? Peyton says either beating number 1 Gonzaga in Phoenix 2018 or the SEC regular season championship in 17 and 18. The Gonzaga win is a good submission, but we did say regular season. So obviously anything postseason, Elite Eight takes the cake. But regular season, Phil says if they win out and earn a 1 seed, then there will not have been a bigger moment. Otherwise, 1 versus 2 in Memphis to earn the number 1 ranking for the first time. It does feel like it's right up there with that legendary game.
Faster.
Who should be the show's lead host? Buck, Lucas, or Bert? 36.2% of the audience vote for me. Thank you. 32.8% of the audience vote for Bert. 31%, the fewest amount of votes, go to Buck.
I have long held the opinion that as long as I get my name on the thing, I don't care who hosts this damn thing.
Bruce replies, none of the above. You guys are all trash. So I'm glad that somebody in the room is smart. Those are the polls.
That's the show. I will try to sound better tomorrow, though I doubt it. We'll look forward to having you guys back in action on primetime tonight, 7 p.m. on A to Z Sports. Lucas and I are off to tour the new Nissan Stadium site 1 year after it started. See you then.